506, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. How are you, friends? It is Monday, October 23rd. Welcome on in. I'm Dan, along with Ken Weaver. Morning, Ken.
Morning, Brother Dan Mandis.
Johnny B's here as well. Morning, Johnny. I'm assuming everyone is bright-eyed and bushy-tailed this morning.
Have been since about 11:30 last night.
So can I ask a question of not only Johnny and Ken, but also of the super texters at 615-737-9986? Are we done with the screaming squad members, yes or no? Because I've got some screaming Ilhan Omar audio that, I could play that shows her, insanity and insincerity and complete delusion. I could play that. And, of course, can I just ask, what is the deal with the Democrat squad members? Like, do they not have access to good audio equipment? Because this audio from Ilhan Omar sounds terrible. But she got to the microphone, podium, wherever the heck she was, and she starts screaming, just like Rashida Tlaib did the other day. And it's Monday. It's like 5:08. Have we all not just had it with screaming squad members? Do I play this audio of Ilhan Omar or not? It is like an 11-second soundbite, and it could launch an entire monologue.
Sure.
Should I play it? Ken, Johnny, should I play the Ilhan Omar audio?
Why not?
Well, the super texters all seem to want to hear it. You asked for it.
Israel has dropped more bombs in the last 10 days than we dropped in a whole year in Afghanistan. Where is your humanity? Where is your outrage?
So there you go. Another screaming squad member.
Boy, they do need some new equipment.
What is wrong with that? This is where our tax money goes. Crappy audio equipment. Good Lord. Anyway, so that's...
Who's she talking to? Where's she at?
I'm assuming Washington, D.C. somewhere.
Ah, yeah.
Because I guess they have microphones and podiums and bad sound equipment randomly.
She's running up to the first one that's open.
Yeah, she's got you listen to the people applauding, and it's like,
yeah,
golf clap.
Go Hamas!
Yeah.
Go Hamas! Go Iran! You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I'm just okay. So the squad members disagree with Israel defending themselves because that's ultimately. I mean, it was like a 3 or 4 minute soundbite. That's all I cared to listen to, but that's what it is. She is basically saying that Israel does not have a right to defend themselves. And, I wrote this down as I'm listening to all of this because she's talking about, we have dropped more bombs, right? So that was actually that did kind of sound like her, didn't it?
Yeah, it did.
For every action, there is a reaction. So my message to Ilhan Omar and the squad and all of their ilk, for every action, there is a reaction. So Hamas did this to Israel, and so Israel reacted. And really, it's not that hard to figure out. People always keep saying that, oh my gosh, it's thousands of years and it's so complicated. It's really not complicated. It's not. I mean, Hamas did what they did, and Israel reacted, bottom line. And then when Israel defends itself, everybody, gets all upset. By the way, there is... I don't know if you saw this story. It's not surprising that Rashida Tlaib, speaking of the squad, Rashida Tlaib is silent on social media after a Detroit synagogue CEO is murdered. So apparently Rashida Tlaib can't find her crappy sound equipment to comment on or post on social media about, for any kind of a response to the death of this synagogue president in Detroit. I mean, I could go on and on about all of this stuff, but, to be perfectly honest, there's so much going on today as it relates to Israel. One thing I find amazing is that despite all the evidence to the contrary, the media is still not reporting on President Biden's funding of Iran through ignored sanctions. See, that's part of what's going on. Whether it is Rashida Tlaib or Ilhan Omar or Jonathan Karl at ABC, where they're ignoring, because every story has two sides, right? Every story has two sides. And so for a lot of these folks in the media, and of course the squad, they're not paying attention to the Israeli side of the story or the story about how Joe Biden funded Iran, who then funds Hamas, who then went after and did the terrorist attack on Israel. So over the weekend, you have Tim Scott, and he's one of my faves, Tim Scott. And he is on there. And apparently out on the campaign trail, Tim Scott said something to the effect of Joe Biden has blood on his hands. Now, knowing what we all know as conservatives about Joe Biden funding Iran and also funding, Hamas-affiliated organizations in Gaza, that's not really all that outlandish of a comment, is it? To say that the president has blood on his hands for, arming Iran with the billions of dollars to send to Hamas to attack Israel? Well, Jonathan Karl asked Tim Scott, who said those very words out on the campaign trail. Jonathan Karl said, do you have any regrets saying this horrible thing about Joe Biden?
Do you regret saying that, of saying that the president of the United States has blood on his hands?
I don't, actually. I'm a happy warrior without any question, but we are now in the midst of a conflict. And so the warrior in me requires responsibility to start at the top. When you think about the fact that the weakness of Joe Biden attracts conflict around this world, and frankly, the negotiations with Iran is what specifically I was talking about. $6 billion for hostages only creates a bigger market for Americans abroad.
But Senator, if I can just...
John, let me finish.
Okay.
That money, let me finish, John.
Yeah, I mean, Jonathan Karl, it was like he was triggered. That's one of the things that I'm noticing is some folks are triggered if somebody is, whether it's a member of the media, a member of the squad, whatever it is, they get triggered by, somebody basically defending Israel and going after Joe Biden. And so that conversation did continue.
Let me finish, John. Look, with that money, we know Hamas's first thank you was to Iran. 90% of their money comes from Iran. You put those pieces of the puzzle together. That's why this administration froze those dollars just last week.
But I mean, I'm glad you mentioned they froze the money because none of that money has gone to Iran, none of it. And you said that he has blood on his hands. I mean, with all due respect, the blood is on the hands of Hamas. And to say that Joe Biden is complicit, which you also said, in the greatest, deadliest attack on the Jewish people since the Holocaust, I mean, that's beyond the pale, isn't it?
Jonathan Karl says that is beyond the pale. And we'll see what Tim Scott has to say about all of that, plus some of your comments on the super text line. The phone number is 615-737-9986, 615-737-WWTN. The super text line is open. By the way, also coming up, we have some new illegal immigration numbers that were released on Saturday. I found them, and I'm going to tell those numbers to you coming up here on Nashville's Morning News. Time to check the roads, 5:15 from the Paul Winkler Investment WTN Traffic Center. Partly cloudy today, a high of 78, 45 now on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. The last comment you heard was ABC's Jonathan Karl saying to Tim Scott it was beyond the pale that Tim Scott said that Joe Biden had blood on his hands regarding the funding of Iran, gives it to Hamas, Hamas attacks Israel. And, I would say to Jonathan Karl, what is beyond the pale? What's beyond the pale is a president who is so weak that it emboldens other nations, evil nations. And so maybe what I noticed during this interview is that, again, Jonathan Karl, he was triggered by what Tim Scott had to say, and he got really upset over it. And I just played you the audio. Not once during this interview does Jonathan Karl even think about what Biden has done to earn that accusation that he's got blood on his hands. It's just beyond the pale. Well, it's really not beyond the pale. There's 3 different avenues where Joe Biden should be criticized. course, and you all know. I mean, you listen to WTN. You've been listening to WTN since this whole thing happened. The $6.5 billion in sanctions that was going to be lifted in exchange for hostages. That, of course, leads to more hostages. But the $6.5 billion, that allows Iran to fund more terrorism with Hamas. I find that beyond the pale. The money that Joe Biden allowed Iran to earn while they were selling oil, as the sanctions on their oil selling were ignored, not enforced. That was also Joe Biden. That is also beyond the pale. And the money that Biden has given to Hamas directly through funding of so-called humanitarian organizations inside Gaza. I spent all last week and the week before telling you folks all about that. So for me, I don't know what else to say about people who don't understand what Joe Biden has done or why Joe Biden does indeed have blood on his hands. And what I do find interesting and intriguing is that there's so many media outlets who are simply, up in arms and angry and all this that Republicans would bring this up. But here's the point. The point is that it is failed policy. It's failed policy on the side of the Biden administration. And everyone knows that. And it's not beyond the pale. I would say to Jonathan Carlin, and by the way, Tim Scott, he didn't really hit hard the ignored oil sanctions. He was focused on the $6.5 billion for the hostages. But even that, from what I understand, I was listening to the Red Eye guys overnight. I've heard people say this, that apparently now we're finding out that $6.5 billion has not been frozen. And so I can't seem to get a straight answer because I'm seeing all kinds of different articles. Some articles say that the money has been frozen. Other articles saying that the money has not been frozen. I don't know, but here's what I know, that the $6.5 billion really is nothing compared to what we've seen in, obviously since Joe Biden took office. Mitch McConnell is out there making all kinds of headlines because he says that there is a brand new axis of evil: Iran, China, and Russia.
The question is America going to lead? I think the Biden administration sent the wrong signal when they had the disastrous withdrawal from Afghanistan. I think that was like giving a green light to Putin to go into Ukraine.
Yep.
And we see that Iran, the principal sponsor of terrorism, sending drones to the Russians and attacking Hezbollah, and in this particular situation, Hamas, attacking the Israelis with drones. So it's all connected.
I mean, obviously it's all connected. But you see, when the media, it's almost like they refuse to look at all of the layers, at least some in the media, refuse to look at all of the layers of what we are dealing with as far as Joe Biden and blood on his hands. I mean, heck, I could go all the way back to, he does. You don't want to talk about Biden with blood on his hands regarding the Afghanistan withdrawal? We could talk about that as well. There's a lot of different instances. I could talk about the border and talk about how people are, number one, you've got people trying to make it over the border. They're making that, for some, a dangerous trek across the desert. Some of those people die. Honestly, if the border wasn't wide open, those people wouldn't be trying to cross our southern border, across the very dangerous desert. I mean, we could go on and on about the blood on Joe Biden's hands. As I believe, is he still sleeping on the beaches of Delaware, of Rehoboth Beach? Because that's where he went over the weekend. As all of this other stuff was going on, the president was at the beach in Delaware. Not sure if he's still there. 521. Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've been teaching investing on Nashville airwaves for over 20 years with the Investor Coaching Show. And in that time, I taught a lot about how markets work and how we invest money and academic principles of investing money. But I've also talked an awful lot about how to avoid the mistakes that people often make with their money. Think about it. A lot of people sold out of the market at the worst time when COVID struck, or when TARP happened, the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or gold, they invested in that at the worst time. Bailing out of the market because they were worried about Y2K or 9/11 or jumping into energy stocks or jumping into cryptocurrency. One of the things that I like to do is educate investors, because I believe that the more educated you are, the more confident you are, and the more confident you are, the more successful you can be as an investor. Now, I not only do that on our radio show, but we do that in our offices around the Nashville region, 10 offices. To learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call, or you can call 615-851-1950.
Cash reward now being offered for a suspect on the run after shooting 2 Middle Tennessee police officers. Israeli warplanes still hammering parts of Gaza in response to the Hamas attacks 2 weeks ago that launched the war. And 7 more Republicans want to be House Speaker. These stories and more at 5:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
You know what, Ken and Johnny, many careers of talk show hosts have been ended, sadly, by ill-advised tweets.
Yeah.
And I may have sent one.
Uh-oh.
Yeah, I feel like I need to apologize. I'm going to do that coming up during the Gang of Three. No messing around here.
Okay.
During the Gang of Three Amigos. I do owe an apology to Twitter's sphere, X sphere, whatever it is. So we'll talk about that at 5:35. I do have a bit of a regret over something that I tweeted. And you know what's so funny? I know better.
Yeah, you gotta type it and then you gotta sit back.
You do. You got to. It's like when you respond to a nasty email, right, at work. You got to get up. You got to walk around. You got to walk around the building a time or two and decide whether or not you should really respond to that email after you type it out. Yeah. And the same goes for tweeting. And so we'll talk about that coming up during the Gang of Three Amigos. Coming up on Super Talk 99.7. By the way, the Super Text line is alive and well. And a lot of folks some people wanted me to play the Rashida or the Ilhan Omar audio. A lot of other folks horrified, actually, by the sound of her voice at 5:07 in the morning. I feel like I'm having a lot to apologize for this morning. It's only 5:28, and I've got 2 things.
You're in a catch-22, Brother Dan Mandis.
If I keep it up, I'm going to be in a catch-23.
Yeah, you're in a damned if I do, damned if I don't mode.
Did you guys get that joke?
Yes.
Catch-22.
Yes, that's very good.
Wow, boy, the lack of enthusiasm there.
It's spilling over from last week, Brother Dan.
Boy, I can sure tell. I'm time checking all of us. 5:29 on Nashville's Morning News. Fall is here. That means winter is next, and you need to make sure that your home's heater is working and working well. Become a Beehive member and ensure that you are running at peak efficiency for maximum comfort. And if your heater does break down, Beehive members do get front-of-the-line service. So when hundreds of homes are without heat, you get serviced first. Becoming a Beehive member also means that you get 3 thorough maintenance services a year, including plumbing, plus no overtime charges 24/7 and 10% off of all repairs. For satisfaction guaranteed, call Busy Bee Plumbing, Heating, and Cooling. That phone number is 615-775-7833, 615-775-7833. Find them online, busybeehvac.com.
.30 on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Right now in Tennessee, the search is on for the suspect who shot 2 police officers in Laverne over the weekend. Channel 4's Danielle Jackson says 38-year-old John Drake Jr. facing attempted murder charges for allegedly firing a gun on the officers called to a Dollar General store after a license plate reader camera hit on a stolen car.
Drake Jr., the estranged son of Metro Nashville Police John Drake, got away, and a statewide blue alert was issued for him. The shelter-in-place warning for people who live near the Dollar General has been lifted. It's because Laverne police tell me they don't believe Drake Jr. is in the area anymore.
Drake Jr. now on the TBI most wanted list with a $2,500 reward being offered for information leading to an arrest. The 2 officers are recovering, Ashley Boleyjack at home and Greg Kern at Vanderbilt. Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage. Sherry Preston.
Israeli warplanes striking targets across Gaza early today as another small shipment of aid is allowed in. However, with 2 million people in Gaza, it's not enough, says World Food Program Director Cindy McCain, who on Sunday told ABC's This Week.
We were able to get 17 more trucks in just now, actually, just a little while ago, I understand, and there's a proposed 40 more tomorrow. with this dribbling system is not going to work.
There were weekend protests in Israel over efforts to rescue the 200 or so hostages being held in Gaza, possibly in that maze of tunnels under the terrorists that built in Gaza City.
Israel is not going to send troops into the tunnels because it's far too dangerous. So they're going to use other mitigation techniques, bombing them, gassing them. So this has become hugely divisive in Israel, and there's a lot of political pressure being brought on Israel's Prime Minister Netanyahu to try to deal with the hostages first, to try to rescue as many as possible.
ABC's Matt Gutman.
And that's Sherry Preston reporting right now in our nation's capital with Jim Jordan no longer the House Speaker designee. Republicans are going to hear from each of the 7 new candidates in a forum tonight behind closed doors. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
.535. Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Good morning to you, friends. Time for the Gang of Three Amigos. Let's see here. Who should be amigo number one? Let's have Johnny be amigo number one because Johnny had to show up here on Saturday. Ken.
Oh, right. Yeah.
That stinks.
You know what's so funny? Johnny is, I actually said, because we had a special thing here on Saturday. I'll get to that in a second. But, so I you know how I'm famously not funny when I try to be funny. So I walk in, and there's like young Mac Maury and, the IT people and Johnny and some other folks. And I made the joke that it felt like the Breakfast Club walking in there.
Yeah.
Because the breakfast, see, nobody laughed here. I thought it was funny. That's fun. I walked in. It feels like the Breakfast Club in here. Not one person laughed, not even a snicker. And I'm like,
Tough crowd.
Well, Mac was probably thinking Breakfast Club.
Yeah, what was that?
Mac was like, "What, McDonald's?"
that?
So
Well,
anyway,
I wish somebody would have brought me some.
yes. Anyway, so so what we're doing is we're trying to redo Super Talk TV.
Yeah.
And so we were all here on Saturday, and I don't think it went as well as to be expected. Although,
Did you guys have a good time?
Oh, yeah. Oh, my gosh. It was just...
it was a great time.
it really was.
Just hooting and hollering.
And
that
we
sort of
learned
thing?
Yeah.
we learned so much, Ken, that right now on YouTube,
Yeah.
Johnny has two big yellow boxes that are like on either side of him.
I was getting ready to say.
And I'm like this box up on the upper left. Ken, you're like next to me. Johnny's down below. And I don't know, it's almost like the entire staff didn't show up today because we've got two yellow boxes on either side of Johnny.
There's just no making you happy. I mean, that's just all there is to it. It's obvious. It's no matter what they do with this television, you find something wrong with it.
I like the yellow boxes, Brother Dan.
Yeah, I kind of like the
Really?
yellow
It looks
box.
like we're like surrounded by bees.
It's kind of like rays of sunshine.
Yes.
Which
Is that
need
what it is,
right
rays
now.
of
Yes,
sunshine?
that's exactly what it is.
Yeah, it's rays of sunshine, Brother Dan.
So let's take a Nashville's morning show vote.
Okay, hey, Mom and Dad, what do you think about that?
So do we keep the very random yellow boxes on either side of us on YouTube? Now, I don't know. Are those same yellow boxes on Facebook? I don't even know.
I don't know.
Because I always look at YouTube.
Oh, well, let me check Facebook really quickly.
I'm taking. By the way, I also, from what I understand, when part of the fun of all of this, part of the fun
What?
was I had to come sit in my seat while everybody was learning how to do frames. And Johnny, is it true they were making fun of my shiny head? And people actually said, "Is there like a filter that we can use for Mandis's head?"
Boy, have you seen, man.
That's what the IT guy said. The producers were in there.
That's what
and they're
IT
trying to figure out a filter for your forehead.
That's what he said.
That's what he said.
Man. Turncoat.
Listen, it's all good. It's all good, man. No problem whatsoever. All right, so what do I need to apologize for?
Yeah, what
Yeah, what do you
need to
to
apologize
Yeah,
for?
you said you have a few things to apologize.
What'd you do, Brother Dan?
Yeah, what?
I'm a little nervous.
Okay.
I tweeted out Taylor Swift and the high school handshake that she has been doing, during the Chiefs game yesterday.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
And I think people got mad at me for tweeting it out.
Why?
Okay.
Listen, just because people are asking me, just make this go away, keep this off my timeline, they can't escape it.
No.
Have you seen it, Ken?
No, I heard about it, though.
Go to my Twitter feed.
Okay.
And you click on the link.
Oh, there it is.
And it's a high school handshake. They're just, I don't even know what you call that. It's like high school girls. And I tweeted it out. And the reason I tweeted
there
it out is
yeah.
because I knew that I wanted to talk about it. And I just, you know what? It's just like, make it stop. Make the Taylor Swift, Travis Kelce thing, just please make it stop.
The media's not going to do that, Brother Dan.
I don't understand what the fascination is.
They are going to continue to cover this. It's like every week now, every Sunday, there are alerts, news alerts on my phone about what Travis Kelce and Taylor Swift might have done before the game and what Travis was seen doing after the game.
Fox News actually sent an alert.
Yes.
This was a few weeks ago that said that Taylor Swift had arrived at the football game.
Yes.
It was like, are you kidding me?
Yeah, Fox News sending an alert that Taylor Swift was at. Taylor Swift's here.
See, now here's the thing.
Hey, look at there.
And here we are talking about it.
Yeah.
But see, it doesn't. Here's the thing, though. This is how I justify talking about it.
Okay.
It doesn't count as like media stupidity if we're talking about it in a negative way. Like if we're calling out the media stupidity, then it's okay to talk about it. Like it's not like I'm going to talk about for any real length of time the fact that suddenly Travis Kelce is dressing a lot better. Have you noticed that? So people were making fun of him because he wore a tracksuit last week, and now all of a sudden he's higher in the rankings as far as the best dressed NFL player.
Well, that's her influence.
Well, of course it is.
Yeah.
Of course it is.
Yeah.
How? I don't even know the right. I don't know if I can say the word on the radio. Can I say the W word on the radio?
The W word?
Yeah.
W word.
What is a W word?
It rhymes with ipped.
Oh.
Can I say? Okay, never mind.
Yeah.
How smitten is he with Taylor Swift? Meow. Dude went out and bought a $6.5 million mansion so that he could have more privacy with Tay-Tay.
How's this, honey?
What was he living in before?
It was another like big house mansion thing, but it was very much accessible. So he went and he bought something
more remote.
It's behind gates and all that.
So it's over there in Franklin. Just outside of Franklin, Leaper's Fork.
No, I'm
just joking.
Oh, okay. I'm so confused now. Anyway, so yeah, the Travis Kelce Taylor Swift thing. But
wouldn't it be something if they did move here? Like if what if they just started shacking up and moved to a big mansion out there in Williamson County somewhere?
I don't know, but the whole thing is just silly.
Or got them a trailer in Centerville. Wouldn't that be great?
Yeah, nobody would suspect them.
Just get a trailer out there.
And you know what the thing is? I don't, and then I promise I'm going to move on.
Mm-hmm.
But what's going to happen, like, when they're just alone and suddenly they realize that they don't really like each other all that much?
Kind of like with almost everybody else.
She was with that other dude that went around kissing dudes. Remember that whole thing?
Oh, yeah.
No.
Yeah.
She was with...
Yeah.
There's a band called, it's the 1975.
Oh, 1975?
Yeah, the 1975. That dude, she had like a little fling with him, and he had a reputation for running around and kissing dudes. And so then all of a sudden, 3 weeks later, there was a big story that he kissed his male security guard. And shocker, they suddenly broke up.
Huh.
After all this talk about...
Interesting.
Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
How did you not know that, Ken?
I think we even talked about it here.
There it is. It's a headline.
Yep.
Well, what do you know?
Apparently not a whole hell of a lot.
It apparently made the Gay Times.
Of course it did.
Is there? I didn't know there was a Gay Times.
There
Times.
is. It's
Really?
based out of the UK.
I dare say, we're not gay, we're just British.
And this apparently
And
was...
happy Brits at that.
That's right.
This was November 29th of 2022. The headline in the Gay Times, the 1975's Maddie Healy passionately kisses a male fan.
Yep.
See there?
Yeah.
Shake it off. Hey, Dan, this is a big day for you.
It's a big day for me.
Yes, it is.
Wait, hold on. It's October 23rd.
Yes. It's National Croc Day, Dan.
Croc Day.
Yes.
I wear Crocs.
Well, today's the day to wear them.
Oh, I didn't know. I wore my tennies today.
See, you should have worn the Crocs.
I should have, but Crocs tend to trigger people. People don't like when I wear my Crocs because my right pinky toe can sometimes stick out of one of the holes. So they don't like when I wear my Crocs.
Well, don't you wear socks with them?
Socks with Crocs?
Yeah, don't you?
What are you, Travis Kelce? No, I don't wear. You don't wear
I'd buy me a
socks
place
with
in Leapers
Crocs.
Fork.
What is wrong with you? I thought I knew you,
That's
man.
what tourists do, Ken.
Does your little toe really stick out of it?
Yeah. If I do a certain angle, yeah, it does.
So is it smiling or is it terrified when that happens?
It's gross.
Does it
Just
get
whatever.
real red?
Yeah.
Because you're cutting off the blood flow to it.
You know what I do when I wear my Crocs? Okay, be honest. You guys ever wear Crocs?
No.
I don't.
You said
I would, but I don't have any.
All right, Johnny?
I would not.
All right. So what I like to do when I wear my Crocs, I like to, sort of move my feet back and forth because it's like air conditioning for my feet.
Yeah.
It feels really good.
Yeah.
Actually. And a
lot of people like them.
I've always worn my Crocs. Amy hates them. Ex-wife hated them.
Well, can't you
All the
slip and
girlfriends
fall
in
them?
between hated them, by the way. So
Aren't they prone to slipping on wet pavement, that sort of thing?
Yeah, but that's okay. It's worth it for air-conditioned feet, Ken. We all have to make sacrifices.
What about that little toe? That little toe gets stuck outside.
I will sacrifice the little toe for the air-conditioned feet of the Crocs.
Help me.
Help me.
It's cold.
By the way, people
Hey, fellas, what about me?
Listen, when we
Wait for me, fellas.
when we go on our boys' trip to go see Journey, I'll wear my Crocs in
In
the car.
Birmingham. That'll get our asses kicked. Where you boys going?
Where are you boys from?
We're going to Journey.
Well, sir, we're from Nashville.
We're on a boys' trip.
What kind of shoes that you wearing?
Deep in the heart of Dixie.
Oh, man. Let me tell you something. First of all, at least I know you don't wear Crocs with socks. At least I do know that.
I thought you could.
No. I mean, you can do anything.
Tourists do.
Tourists do.
They wear socks.
They wear socks with everything.
By the way, let's see here. They say the yellow is binding. Blinding. The yellow is blinding.
Blinding.
It's binding.
It's binding, too.
Some coffee will, some Cumulus coffee will take care of that binding for you, friends.
Cumulus coffee.
Dan, let me ask you this. Your nail on your little toe.
Boy, you can't get over that little toe.
Yeah.
Is it is it like kind of like oval shaped to go like right in line with the top of your little toe, or is it just cut straight across?
Okay, so here's the thing. I kind of like how it feels when I stick the little toe out.
Yeah.
I don't know why. I've always have.
Well, it probably gives you a little extra sense of traction.
Yeah.
Because it can move on its own.
Yes, that's exactly right, Ken. You know what? I'll bring in my Crocs next time I'm here, which is not going to be. I'm going to take a couple of days off, but maybe when I come back, I will wear my Crocs in, and I'll show a picture of my little pinky toe coming out of.
Yeah, do that, man. I don't know why that cracks me up.
This is either okay. So this is what I deal with on the super text line. 5581 says, "I give this segment 5 yawns," and then 3149 says, "Y'all are killing me this morning with 4 laughing emojis." I don't know which one do I listen to?
Oh, both of them.
Yeah.
We probably need to fall somewhere in the middle.
There's some truth in both.
Yeah, I'm sure there
Was
is.
it the fake Twitter related apology regarding Taylor Swift and the secret handshake? Which, by the way, it's not secret if you do it in front of television.
Yes.
Well, they're the only ones who know how to do their handshake.
Yeah, baby.
By the way, I think we must now acknowledge Mac Morey and Chris Hand and their secret handshake.
Yes.
Because do they talk about that on the air? The secret handshake that they do?
I don't recall.
I don't recall them.
Every day they come in and they've got like this 7th grade junior high school secret handshake thing that they do. And I don't even like to watch it. So part of the bit is my part of the handshake is I'm holding my hand up so that I don't have to see it.
Yeah.
So, and I don't know why they do that. But then Ken Weaver came in one day and he started participating in the secret handshake.
He did.
But I don't know how to do it.
I know, but you know.
I mean, I know you kind of do a sideways high five, then you do a back high five. After that, I don't know what to do.
Well, that's okay.
I miss the days of just shaking hands. You know.
Actually, I don't. I'll do a fist bump or an elbow bump any day of the week.
Well, that too.
Because you know what? I know where people's hands have been. That's all I'm going to say.
Well.
Just say.
Mr. Gotta go. Very go.
Oh, shoot,
Very well.
man.
Very well.
551 Nashville's Morning News. Your home is a big investment. USS United Structural Systems is here to protect your home. I don't know why I just shut off my microphone. So I'm going to start over again.
Maybe it was one of the super texters.
Maybe it's your little toe.
Maybe that's what it is. Your home is a big investment. USS is here to protect it. Now, that's who I turn to. Anytime I have a problem, I call the experts in waterproofing, foundation repair, and concrete leveling, just to name a few. USS. Now, these folks have been helping customers for years. They've got 25,100% satisfied clients, including me. Now, they are problem solvers. They arrive at your home to figure it out and then fix it and communicate with you along the way. So what can USS help you with? Concrete lifting, foundation repair, basement and crawl space waterproofing, and so much more. USS has been helping Tennesseans since 1994, so call them today. We guarantee our best. Call USS, 615-488-7855. 615-488-7855. Tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out, USSTN.com, 615-488-7855.
It is day 3 of a statewide search for the suspect police say shot 2 Middle Tennessee police officers. Journalists caught in Mideast fighting, and a big toy recall because of a choking hazard. These stories and more at 6 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken. 5:57, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Okay, coming up next, it's being called a significant blow to Biden's border narrative. New numbers came out regarding illegal immigration. Wait till you hear these numbers. It is really, really bad. And also, the speaker race does continue, and Sheila Jackson Lee is in all kinds of hot water. I'm going to tell you all about that story as well. All of that and a whole lot more straight ahead. It's Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Six o'clock on the dot this Monday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Right now in Nashville, it is day 3 of the statewide search for the suspect who shot 2 Laverne police officers at a Dollar General store over the weekend. The suspect, John Drake Jr., is on the run. He's the estranged son of Metro Nashville Police Chief John Drake. With more on the story, here's Channel 4's Danielle Jackson.
Police say Officer Ashley Boleyjack and Gregory Kern were responding to a stolen car after license plate readers picked it up at this Dollar General. It's when the suspect, 38-year-old John Drake Jr., shot one officer in the groin and arm and the other in the shoulder.
Drake Jr. now on the TBI most wanted list with a $2,500 reward being offered for information leading to his arrest. Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage.
Journalists caught in Middle East fighting. Israeli airstrikes continuing overnight with more than 4,000 people killed so far in Gaza. ABC's Matt Gutman covering the war says one Palestinian journalist captured drone images of a block of buildings pulverized into gray dust.
Another Palestinian journalist, Motaz Azeza, dropping his camera and scooping up 2 wounded toddlers, rushing them to a hospital.
They are injured by the bombing. I just hear them. You're fine.
Palestinians running out of bare necessities. Today, 17 trucks filled with food and water crossing from Egypt into Gaza, but the aid yet to be distributed for unknown reasons.
Moves still being made to try to rescue some of the 200 or so hostages being held in Gaza. There were protests by family members in Israel over the weekend. Other people also came out urging Israel to deal with the hostages first before there was a ground incursion.
That is Sherry Preston reporting. And right now in our nation's capital, now that Jim Jordan is no longer the House Speaker designee, 7 other Republicans say they'll be Speaker, and there will be a closed-door forum for them to take Q&A with the rest of the Republican conference tonight. Market Numbers Report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, beaconcm.com. Here's Jim Ryan.
Concerns over higher interest rates sent all 3 major stock indexes into negative territory last week. The Dow Jones on Friday closed down 287 points at 33,127. The Standard & Poor's 500 surrendered 1.25%. The Nasdaq Composite 1.5%. The most closely watched measure of nervousness among investors is the SIBO Volatility Index. It has hit its highest in 7 months, driven by worries about the Israel-Hamas war and concerns about weaker earnings from tech companies. Fisher-Price is recalling more than 20,000 Thomas & Friends toys. The problem is a plastic piece with a strong magnet. It's supposed to connect the train cars together but can come loose and pose a choking hazard. The Swifties are still buying tickets. Taylor Swift's Eras Tour concert film snared $31 million more during its second weekend in theaters. The total box office take from that film has hit nearly $130 million domestically alone.
All right, let's check futures ahead of the opening bell on Wall Street. Dow futures down 175, S&P down 22, NASDAQ down 82. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
News with Dan Mandis.
And go, my fellow Americans.
We talk news. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
607 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome on in, and the Super Text line is open at 615-737-9986. Super Talk TV is up and running as well. We are on Twitter, Facebook, 997WTN.com. YouTube as well, if you want to see the radio show. Man, there's a lot going on, so I just want to get right into it. Some new numbers came out over the weekend, illegal immigration numbers. This is the headline, and these numbers, I'm telling you, they're bad. Customs and Border Patrol on Saturday announced that migrant numbers at the southern border for the month of September, by the way, I love how they released these on a Saturday, had reached new levels with the highest monthly encounters on record, as well as the highest fiscal year total on record, in a significant blow to the Biden administration's border strategy. Now, remember that they've been, of course, everyone knows the joke, the border is closed, the border is closed, the border is secure, right? The Biden administration keeps telling us that. Everyone knows that that is simply not true. But then when you look at these numbers, these numbers are continuing to grow. Regardless of what Biden tries to do, the numbers do continue to grow. And, you know, the barbed wire that Governor Greg Abbott has been putting up out there in Texas doesn't help at all. They say there were 269,735 migrant encounters in September, of which 218,763 were encountered entering illegally by Border Patrol agents. And, you know, I could keep telling you all of these numbers, but suffice to say, these numbers are bad. These numbers are very bad. And I know that you know the story by now because we go through this every single month, because we're just processing and letting them come in. And at a time when, you know, we have the war going on, Israel and Hamas, I mean, our southern border is more important now than ever. As a matter of fact, there was an interview with Kevin McCarthy I'm going to get to in a second. There's an interview with Kevin McCarthy, and one of the things that he kept talking about was, of course, our southern border, and we do need to make sure that we secure it. It's almost a moot point at this point because everybody knows what's going on our southern border, but we also don't know who is coming across. This is part of a report from Fox News.
The optics are terrible. The optics show, hey, the border's open, come on down. But the facts are they're already in the United States.
It's incredible. Border Patrol Chief Jason Owens, who visited Eagle Pass yesterday, says over the past 11 months, they've apprehended more than 12,500 migrants with criminal backgrounds. A reminder, not all arriving are innocent.
12,500. And again, not to belabor the point, but I don't know, you feel safe these days? And we already have hundreds of thousands of people that are taking to the streets and protesting the United States, you know, supporting Israel. And we don't know, again, who's coming across that southern border. And so I could bore you with the numbers. I know that everybody knows what the numbers are. The numbers are really bad. And every month it seems like it's a new high. Every month, it's the same story, slightly different numbers, but all higher. And they talk about, in the story, they talk about the cutting of the razor wire and how the Border Patrol is cutting the razor wire because, you know, people are trying to come over and they're stuck in the water and they need to come over and they're already on United States land. And so it seems like nothing that anybody wants to do about this. And I know that you know this. Governor Greg Abbott, he was on stage in New York.
2,000 miles away in the Big Apple, Texas Governor Greg Abbott, often criticized in New York for busing migrants north, says don't blame him.
The lead importer of migrants to New York is not Texas. It's Joe Biden.
Meanwhile, there were 18 encounters, and that is true. We've talked about that quite a bit. Meanwhile, there were 18 encounters of people on the terror watch list between ports of entry at the southern border, taking the total for fiscal year 23 up to 169. A new record and more than the last 6 fiscal years combined. In a statement, acting CBP Commissioner Troy Miller said that the agency is surging resources and personnel in response to the high rates of encounters at the border. The White House this week asking Congress for $14 billion in funding for its border strategy, including more staffing and money for migrant services. And everyone knows, maybe you don't, but when the president says that he wants $14 billion in funding for its border strategy, including more staffing, that's not to turn people away. No, that is staffing to process these folks to allow them into our country faster. And that's part of what is going on. And so for the longer that the border remains unsecured, which clearly it's not secure, which is what the Biden administration keeps telling us that it is, the more in danger we are, the United States is. But for the longest time, we had a secure border with Donald Trump. And now, because the border is wide open, because the narrative that is within the media, which is it's wide open, that does encourage more illegal immigration. But here's the problem. Because people will say, and I've been accused of this before, people will say, well, why do you Republicans always talk about it then? We talk about it because there does need to be an answer to what Joe Biden is doing and what he's not doing. And what he's not doing is securing the border. And we can all have, some sort of a media shutdown and not talk about what's happening or who's coming across the southern border. But it's still in the media in places like Mexico and Venezuela. That's all part of the narrative, is that they want people to come into our country for any number of reasons. Of course, people come into our country and then they send money back to, their home country. In Mexico, I think money being sent from the United States back to Mexico, I mean, it's millions and millions of dollars. That's a huge part of Mexico's economy. Now, coming up next, why does Kevin McCarthy believe this is so incredibly important? I've got great audio for you straight ahead, 6:15. Time to check the roads from the Paul Winkler Investment WTN Traffic Center. Thank you very much. Partly cloudy today, a high of 78. Right now, 45 at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Kevin McCarthy was on the Meet the Press. He was on Meet the Press. And, of course, Kevin McCarthy, everybody wants to talk to the former speaker because of the absolute train wreck that is going on right now in the House of Representatives, because everyone knows they don't have a speaker, and he was being interviewed, and he was asked the question. He has no regrets about how he handled his speakership, and said he would not do anything differently.
I would do the exact same thing again. Could you imagine if we were having this discussion right now with the American government shut down, with our troops in the Middle East, wondering when they'll ever get paid again? Keeping the government open was the right decision to make, and I'd make it again each and every day. Now, the two men, Steve Scalise and Jim Jordan, they could have done the job as Speaker. Unfortunately, the chaos has continued. We need to solve this problem.
Yeah, we do need to solve this problem. And you know what's fascinating? There's some folks online that are in social media that are saying that if you say that the Republicans need to figure out a speaker, and they need to figure out a speaker fast, some people are calling you a rhino simply for wanting a functional as the government can be. They'll call you a rhino just for saying you need, and we need, a functional government and a Speaker of the House, which doesn't really actually make any sense, but whatever, because, some of the most conservatives out there, including Jim Jordan, who, I like him a lot, but even Jim Jordan was out there cutting deals with the moderate Democrats. We talked about that on Friday. So, there's a lot of folks out there that are calling people who are saying we need to find a speaker rhino. Doesn't make a whole hell of a lot of sense, especially when you look at the compromises that someone like Jim Jordan was willing to make, including tying the Ukraine funding and the Israel funding together in one bill, which is exactly what Joe Biden ultimately did. But, it's interesting. When you look back on why some of the Republicans talked about ousting the speaker, but then ultimately decided to keep the speaker in place. Obviously, Andy Ogles is one. I think this is exactly the reason why. They were worried that the government would grind to a halt and it would be bad optics for Republicans. They said that there would be plenty of time to deal with all of the disagreements over, the vacations that Kevin McCarthy allowed, the spending bills and the rest of the issues that were at issue. But we did need to keep the government running. And so now it's interesting because you've got those 8. You had, of course, Tim Burchett and Matt Gaetz and some of these other folks. They actually sent out a letter on Friday after we got off the air. And the letter basically said, you can censure us, you can punish us, you can do whatever you want. Just please vote for Kevin McCarthy. I should say, vote for Jim Jordan for Speaker. And, of course, we know what happened. Jim Jordan was ultimately bounced. But I do wonder if the Matt Gaetzes and the Tim Burchetts and some of these folks that, ultimately voted to bounce Kevin McCarthy, do they have any regrets? Because look what's happened. And we talked about it on Friday with Scott Desjardins, where it's just there is no real functioning government. There's nothing but confusion. And we got a border that is just wide open and things that we simply cannot do. And now we've got a long list of people that have come out over the weekend who want to be Speaker. You've got Representative Kevin Hern. You've got House Majority Whip Tom Emmer. You've got Byron Donalds, who I really like. He's kind of a rookie. Somebody called him a rookie on Twitter. Byron Donalds out of Florida, but he's a favorite of mine. Pete Sessions out of Texas. Gary Palmer out of Alabama as well. And Kevin McCarthy. Kevin McCarthy is out there now trying to pitch Tom Emmer to the American people and to his fellow Republicans. And McCarthy does say that we do need to get this done quickly because of what's going on around America and around the world.
We got a wide open southern border. We got crushing inflation. We got war in the Middle East. This is not a moment in time to play around with learning on the job. We need someone who understands how to do this job. I believe Tom Emmer, our whip, he's been in the room with all of our successes, from our bills to secure the border, from Parents' Bill of Rights, from cutting $2 trillion, getting work requirements. He knows how to do the job across the street at the same time, helping us win the majority. He sets himself head and shoulders above all those others who want to run. We need to get him elected this week and move on and bring this not just party together, but focus on what this country needs most.
And so a couple of more questions that I'm going to tackle right before the news. Number one is, okay, Kevin McCarthy, so you want Tom Emmer. We don't know if Emmer is going to be able to get the votes or the support. We don't know if any of these names that I've just mentioned, Byron Donalds or Kevin Hern or Pete Sessions or Gary Palmer. What about you, Kevin McCarthy? Are you interested in, throwing your name in the ring yet again? That's number one. And number two, a question that kind of went viral a little bit about Donald Trump and, whether or not Kevin McCarthy calls himself a MAGA Republican. Wait till you hear this. It's all straight ahead on WTN at 621. I want to tell you about my buddy John Griffith. When you are looking for a personal injury attorney, it can be stressful at an already stressful time, which is why I do endorse John Griffith. Now, John was honored as the Outstanding Trial Lawyer of the Year here in the state of Tennessee a few years back, and that's one of many reasons why I do endorse John Griffith. He's not afraid to go to trial if it means a better outcome for you. To John and his team, you're not just another case or quick settlement. No, John Griffith is going to get to know you, your case, and then work hard to protect you and your family. His phone number is 615-807-7900 for personal injury attorney John Griffith. You may not need a personal injury attorney today, tomorrow, but you may need one someday. And if your someday comes, remember the guy that I endorse, John Griffith, 615-807-7900. You can find him online. It's griffithinjurylaw.com. That's griffithinjurylaw.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've been teaching investing on Nashville airwaves for over 20 years with the Investor Coaching Show. And in that time, I taught a lot about how markets work and how we invest money and academic principles of investing money. But I've also talked an awful lot about how to avoid the mistakes that people often make with their money. Think about it. A lot of people sold out of the market at the worst time when COVID struck, or when TARP happened, the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or gold, they invested in that at the worst time. Bailing out of the market because they were worried about Y2K or 9/11, or jumping into energy stocks, or jumping into cryptocurrency. One of the things that I like to do is educate investors, because I believe that the more educated you are, the more confident you are, and the more confident you are, the more successful you can be as an investor. Now, I not only do that on our radio show, but we do that in our offices around the Nashville region, 10 offices. To learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Manhunt underway for a Middle Tennessee police chief's son. Israeli leaders under pressure to delay that ground campaign in Gaza. And 9 new House Speaker candidates. These stories and more at 6:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Ken, wasn't it just like 7 a few hours ago?
Yeah, apparently it is 9. That's what I'm seeing now.
You know who, John, I need some audio if I could. You know who I wonder if is gonna throw her name in the ring?
Who?
Sheila Jackson Lee.
It's the worst that I could have ever had put together.
I'll play that one more time because that may have caught some people by surprise.
It's the worst that I could have ever had put together.
That is Sheila Jackson Lee. She is a Texas congresswoman, and she is running for mayor of Houston. And one of her staffers taped her berating said staffer, and it does not look good for Sheila Jackson Lee. I'm going to play you the audio coming up after the news at 6:35 because people are saying she needs to be, censured and all this other kind of stuff. We'll see, but I will say this: when I play you the audio, one of the things that I'll say is, can you imagine if this was a male congressman berating a female? It would be all kinds of hysteria. But because it's Sheila Jackson Lee, who, by the way, has a history of this kind of behavior, nobody really seems to care. I'll play you the audio coming up after the news right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So I was talking about what is going on with Kevin McCarthy. And one of the things that he was asked when he was on Meet the Press is why he isn't endorsing Donald Trump. That's number one. Why isn't he endorsing Donald Trump? And number two, is he a MAGA Republican? And the way that she said it, Kirsten Welker, the way that she said it, it's almost like it's a negative, like it's a pejorative. Listen.
Well, the campaign is still going. There's a very good chance I would endorse
He's the
President
clear
Trump.
front runner.
You know
he's
what?
the clear front runner. What are you waiting for?
Well, I believe... Well, you know what? Because I've got a southern border wide open. I got war in the Middle East. I got things I'm focused on right now. I believe President Trump will be our nominee, and I believe President Trump will get reelected.
Are you still a MAGA Republican, Mr. Speaker?
He has brought it chaos. You know what? I am a conservative Republican from the beginning to the end, and that's what I've always been. You can try to phrase different names to people, but I'm proud of who I am.
All right. Former House Speaker Kevin McCarthy, thank you. We know you have a busy week ahead. Thanks so much.
Yeah, when I heard her in that line of questioning, do you consider yourself a MAGA Republican? Like it's a negative thing. And I think everyone knows that the media is trying to make a MAGA Republican, and Joe Biden is doing this, trying to make the term MAGA Republican as something that is negative as opposed to something positive. And what we're seeing from the Biden administration, I don't know about you, but I could definitely use a few more MAGA Republicans in the White House and in, of course, the House of Representatives and the Senate, because life was a lot better when we had some MAGA Republicans around Washington, D.C. It is 6:30 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. And right now in Tennessee, Channel 4's Ryan Breslin says it is day 3 in the search for John Drake Jr., the suspect in the shooting of 2 police officers in Laverne on Saturday.
TBI issued a blue alert after they say he shot those 2 officers. Now, one of the officers is already back home recovering. The other officer is still here at Vanderbilt, but they are expected to be okay.
Yeah, officers Ashley Boleyjack and Gregory Kern were shot after they responded to a stolen vehicle at a Dollar General store there in Laverne, which a license plate reader camera caught. The suspect is the estranged son of Metro Nashville Police Chief John Drake, who says he is shocked and deeply saddened. Chief Drake releasing a statement saying he has had minimal contact with his son over many years. Authorities lifted the shelter-in-place order near the shooting scene now that they do not think Drake Jr. is in the area. Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage. Here's Josh Einiger.
There's a large and growing and very vocal protest movement within the state of Israel. Family members and their supporters urging Israel to hold off on an invasion of Gaza until they're able to bring those hostages home. 2 American hostages were released a few days ago. Since then, nothing. And there is a serious concern about the state of those hostages, about where they are, their safety.
News strikes on Gaza overnight. And in our nation's capital, House Republicans will hear from each of the 9 new speaker candidates in a forum tonight behind closed doors. Aiki Jaichi reports former Speaker Kevin McCarthy's endorsing Minnesota Congressman Tom Emmer.
He could run into big trouble with supporters of former President Trump because Emmer did not support efforts to overturn the 2020 election results. Now, one critic claims Emmer is Nancy Pelosi in a suit, but other Republicans are simply fed up with the party's inability to unite behind one speaker candidate.
That is the latest news, traffic, and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
So it's interesting. 637 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Welcome on in. I'm Dan Mandis, along with Johnny B. Ken Weaver. Monday, October 23rd. I'm listening to this interview. And, you know, I'm getting so tired of these media members and folks on the left using the term MAGA Republicans as a slur. Guy on the super text line said that, most MAGA Republicans are a-holes. Where does this guy even get that from? Because a lot of the people that I know that are MAGA Republicans, whatever it is, whatever that means, they're not a-holes. They care about our country. They care about the border. They care about terrorism and preventing terrorism. They care about not kowtowing to China. They care about low taxes. They care about smaller government. They care about our children in schools. They care about our freedoms. And so, you know, when Kirsten Welker asks Jim Jordan this question,
are you still a MAGA Republican, Mr. Speaker?
He has brought it chaos. You know what? I am a conservative Republican from the beginning to the end, and that's what I've always been. You can try to phrase different names to people, but I'm proud of who I am.
Yeah, that is Kevin McCarthy. And again, you keep hearing these members of the media try and use the term MAGA Republican and try to call them, you know, some sort of pejorative, like, you know, and it all goes back down. I know that everybody knows that what they're doing is they're trying to tie MAGA Republican with quote unquote stolen elections. That's obviously what they're trying to do. And, you know, it's interesting because when you look at and again, I'm air quoting, stolen election, nobody has anything to say about the Democrats who stood by and still to this day stand by the story of, you know, their letter that the media sold and the intelligence agency sold, the letter that said that the laptop from hell was Russian disinformation. Those 51 intelligence officials, both sides of the aisle, they said that it was Russian disinformation, and it wasn't. And so, you know, I wish we could come up with some sort of a name that I could say on the radio for those Democrats who pushed that lie. Because everybody always talks about, and then I'll get back on topic, but, you know, people always say, oh, well, you know, Donald Trump and the big lie, MAGA Republicans. Well, what about the lies coming from the other side? Because it seems to me like they pushed a massive lie, and they knew that it was a lie. They knew that it was a lie all along when they said the laptop from hell was Russian disinformation, and it wasn't. And the intelligence agencies, the FBI, members of the media completely dismissed that story from the New York Post. And so I don't know what we call, you know, that sort of block of entities, whether it's the Democrats, whether it's the media, social media, the intelligence agencies, you know, just all of those different entities. I mean, they were part of one of the biggest lies in American political history. So yeah, that would be one of my questions. Okay, so let's talk about, if you want to talk about MAGA Republicans, let's talk about the other side, and maybe somebody far smarter than me can come up with a term for all of those folks that perpetuated that big lie that truly did absolutely impact the election. You see, here's the other thing, and then I promise I'm going to move on. But Donald Trump asserting that, you know, I'm again air quoting, the election was stolen, that didn't actually impact, though, the actual election. But their lie did. The Democrats and the media, social media, the intelligence agencies, Joe Biden, their lie did impact the election. So I don't know. I don't know what the best word for those people are or would be, but there's got to be one. Because being an air quote MAGA Republican is absolutely nothing to be ashamed of. It is 6:42 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. So this is a great story. And the reason it's a great story is because it kind of shows you the hypocrisy of folks on the left. This is the headline. Sheila Jackson Lee, Congresswoman out of Houston, Texas, and is running for mayor of Houston. She was taped berating a staffer. And by the way, more than a few people pointing out that she is endorsed by none other than Hillary Clinton. And so she's obviously in a car. She's on the phone with the staffer. And it seems to me like what the staffer did was he knew that he was going to get berated. So he taped the phone call.
Okay, so when I called Jerome, he on me sitting up there like a fat ass, stupid idiot, talking about what the he doesn't know. Okay? Both of y'all are up an F. It's the worst that I could have ever had put together. Two big ass children. Fucking idiots. Serve no purpose. Ain't managing nobody. Nobody's respecting them. Nobody gives a shit about what you're doing. And you ain't doing shit. And this is an example of it. I gave it to Jerome. This is not child's work. Okay?
So clearly, she is very, very used to just throwing down the F-bombs.
Sounds like halftime for a team who's losing.
Yes, the Crimson Tide.
See, here's the deal. Part of what she's complaining about is her own doing. Because she's complaining about the way that her office runs. There's this dude, whoever she was talking to, and some guy named Jerome. And she's talking about their incompetence. Well, isn't she the one that's supposed to be running the office? So when she says this is the, dumbest bleep I've ever heard, well, that's on you, Sheila Jackson Lee, because you're the one that's supposed to be running the office. Now, we don't know what led up to this, except that, as Fox News puts it, the staffer on the phone gave a calendar event of some sort to a fellow staffer named Jerome. But Sheila Jackson Lee is known as the meanest woman in Congress. She's accused of forcing staffers to work long hours, even into the early morning hours. She's demanding that her staff drive her everywhere, even short distances. Do you guys remember this story where Sheila Jackson Lee, if it's maybe a 2-block distance, she is demanding to be driven that 2-block distance? That is Sheila Jackson Lee in her, big highfalutin car that she's got, and her staff have to drive her everywhere. She also, by the way, this is part of the story, she fired a staffer, Sheila Jackson Lee, the meanest woman in Congress. She fired a staffer after she found out that she was planning on suing the Congressional Black Caucus Foundation after the staffer was allegedly raped and going to sue the organization. So the employee was fired by Sheila Jackson Lee and accused Sheila Jackson Lee of retaliation for the lawsuit. And so this is a woman who I don't know. She's the meanest congressperson on Capitol Hill, and people describe her as just incredibly nasty.
It's the worst that I could have ever had put together.
But here's the deal. Again, it is absolutely her fault. I would love to see her, either censured or something, because again, if this was a Republican berating, God help us, a female staffer, it would be hair on your fire insanity over there on CNN or MSNBC. So far as I can see, though, I'm on local channels this morning. I do wonder if CNN is covering it. If not, I'd say
it's the worst that I could have ever had put together.
That's what I'm saying. 646. Time to check the roads from the Paul Winkler Investment WTN Traffic Center. Thank you very much. 646 on Nashville's Morning News. Hey, coming up after the news at 7, we're going to talk a little bit about Chief Drake and a very sad situation with his estranged son being sought for the allegedly shooting 2 police officers. We'll talk about that after the news at 7 right here on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Today, partly cloudy and a high of 78. Right now, 45 at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. A lot of folks with the whole situation between Israel and Hamas asking the question, what about all the Biden corruption? Well, I've got a couple of stories just for you. I'm going to try and get through these. I'm sure that it is just a coincidence that Joe Biden paid for his beach house right after those threats from Hunter Biden demanding that their Chinese business partner demanding that $10 million. Remember that whole story?
Yeah.
And it was right at that time that Biden came out and paid $2.75 million in cash for his beach house in Rehoboth Beach, Delaware. Just paid cash. The exclusive from the Daily Mail, this came out, I think this was on Saturday. Joe Biden paid nearly $2.75 million in cash for his Rehoboth Beach house within weeks of Hunter Biden sending that threatening text to a Chinese business partner demanding to close on that $10 million deal. And so people are saying, oh, I'm sure that there's no correlation between the two. I'm reading this story, and I'll go ahead and I'll tweet this out at Dan Mandis Show. But they talk about how this is yet another angle that the Republicans are going to have to look into, is that money, because that money, remember, the Bidens did end up getting money from that Chinese business partner. And all of a sudden, Joe Biden is getting, all this money, and all the Biden clan are getting all this money. And Joe is able to throw down almost $3 million for his house. This was from the Daily Mail. They say that this is one of Joe Biden's clearly favorite places. And now the funding has come under scrutiny, should come under scrutiny because of this story from the Daily Mail. And then there's this story, again, Joe Biden, from the New York Post. Biden's brother paid Joe Biden $200,000 while seeking a Mideast investor for a hospital firm. President Joe Biden received a $200,000 check in 2018 from his younger brother, James, on the same day that he received the same amount from a U.S. hospital chain by promising to secure a Middle East investor. Bank records obtained by Congress show. This summer, Joe Biden said, where's the money? Well, as the New York Post says, we found some, says House Oversight Committee Chairman James Comer in a video posted Friday afternoon to Twitter. We're going to talk about that, play some of that audio as well, coming up on Super Talk 99.7. Listen, as much as we're talking about Israel, as much as we're talking about Hamas and everything going on the border, we will also keep an eye on all of the investigations going on in the House of Representatives into the Bidens, which, by the way, investigations that if the Republicans have to work with the Democrats to get a Speaker of the House, the Democrats want all of these investigations dropped. That's how important the Speaker of the House is. It is 6:51 on Super Talk 99.7. If you need a lawnmower, furniture, or appliances, the first stop you need to make, my friends at DT McCall's, either online or in person. Just go to their website at dtmccalls.com and check out their incredible selection of everything. And if you buy something online like I did, they're going to deliver it for free and haul away the old stuff. Now at DT McCall's, the price on the tag is the price. They don't try and sneak in additional charges. That is what I call Middle Tennessee values. They've been here in the volunteer state for nearly 100 years, treating people right and doing what's right, offering great products at fair prices. Tell them Dan Mandis told you to stop by any one of their 5 locations. Carthage, Cookeville, Lebanon, Lafayette, and Franklin, always online at dtmccalls.com.
The manhunt continues for John Drake Sr., or rather Jr., that is, whom police say shot 2 Laverne police officers on Saturday. In our nation's capital, you have 9 Republican House Speaker candidates now that Jim Jordan is out. A former Major League Baseball pitcher who also played in Nashville is awaiting extradition from Nevada to California as part of a murder investigation. And you got to hear about what happened at a fountain in Florida where children were playing, and all of a sudden there's an electrical spark.
Oh,
Details at 7 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken. 6:56 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. By the way, people asking where they can find that Sheila Jackson Lee audio, I tweeted it out at Dan Mandis Show. My comment on the tweet was, she sounds so pleasant. Anyway, so if you want to hear the completely unfiltered Sheila Jackson Lee audio without the beeps, because I spent a significant amount of time this morning putting all those beeps in, you can find it at Dan Mandis Show on Twitter. And got a lot more straight ahead, including more detail on this supposed loan repayment from Joe Biden's younger brother to Joe, $200,000, but nobody can figure out what it's for. And it looks like it may be some part of influence peddling scheme. That story for you, and a whole lot more straight ahead. It's Nashville's Morning News on WTN.
7 o'clock on the dot this Monday morning. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. And right now in Middle Tennessee, the manhunt continues for John Drake Jr., whom police say shot 2 Laverne police officers on Saturday. Channel 4's Ryan Bresling says Drake Jr. is the estranged son of Nashville's police chief.
Metro Police Chief John Drake also says that his thoughts and prayers are with those 2 officers. He says that his estranged son turned to crime many years ago, is a convicted felon, and also adds that he has not been a part of his life in many years. TBI says John Drake Jr. should be considered armed and dangerous at this time.
Now, the 2 officers who were shot are recovering. Ashley Boleyjack is at home. Gregory Kern is still at Vanderbilt. Later today in our nation's capital, 9 Republican House Speaker candidates meet with the conference behind closed doors. Here's Ike Jaichi.
Former Speaker Kevin McCarthy has endorsed Minnesota Congressman Tom Emmer. Now, as House Majority Whip, Emmer is in charge of organizing Republicans to pass key legislation, but he could run into big trouble with supporters of former President Trump because Emmer did not support efforts to overturn the 2020 election results.
An internal secret ballot vote will be held tomorrow morning, possibly the floor later in the day tomorrow. Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage. Here's Josh Einiger.
New strikes in Gaza overnight. This was what the Israel Defense Force describes as a terror target in Gaza. But of course, these targets are interlaced with civilians, and there have been civilian casualties, many of them children. There's a lot of international pressure on Israel to dial back its efforts, at least until people are able to evacuate, more humanitarian aid is able to get in.
Death toll from the conflict now stands at more than 1,400 in Israel, most of them from the October 7th terror attack, which started the whole war, and more than 3,400 in Gaza. Former Major League Baseball pitcher and Nashville Sounds player Danny Serafini is awaiting extradition from Nevada to California this morning. He's one of 2 people charged in a 2021 shooting that left his father-in-law dead, his mother-in-law wounded. She later died. Police releasing footage showing a man wearing a hood outside the victim's home, raising some questions. Channel 4 says that in 2000, Serafini played for the Nashville Sounds. He started 7 games for the team that season. Right now in Florida, Jim Ryan reports on a frightening and confusing chain of events which sent 5 people to the hospital. Started with a report of a child in distress.
The Harborside Place retail and resort complex features a large splash pad, essentially a series of fountains illuminated from below. On Sunday, 911 was called when a child appeared to be drowning. Others who ran in to help were getting electric shocks.
When we arrived on scene, Jupiter Police Department and civilians were treating patients when we got here, so they got here very quick.
Palm Beach County Fire Captain Tom Reyes says 5 people were hospitalized, 3 of them children who were in cardiac arrest.
All right, checking futures ahead of the opening bell on Wall Street. Dow futures down 141, S&P down 15, NASDAQ down 44. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Stories with Dan Mandis.
And go, my fellow Americans.
We talk news. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
7:07, Nashville's morning news on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. If you're driving around, you see all the signs. Ken Weaver, TBI alert. And that is, there's a phone number to call if you...
TBI Blue Alert.
TBI Blue Alert. And if you see the police chief's son, John Drake Jr., then you're supposed to call the number. That's what that is all about. Horrible, terrible story. There's a number of different layers to this story. Police Chief Drake's son is wanted for allegedly shooting two cops in Laverne. Incredibly sad story. And what's also incredibly sad is if you look at some of the comments on social media, and I do understand that social media is just, it is like the great unwashed for a lot of folks. It really is. You know, people say things on social media that can be just absolutely cruel. And so the story of Police Chief Drake's son, part of it is that they are estranged. Nashville Police Chief John Drake's son, John Drake Jr., 38, is suspected in the shooting of two police officers in Laverne. These two officers, as Ken has been reporting, were investigating a stolen vehicle outside of a Dollar General store when the suspect pulled a handgun and shot the two officers. Both, it looks like, Ken, they're going to be okay.
Yes, they are recovering. One of them's still in the hospital.
Okay.
Officer Greg Kern is still at Vanderbilt, but he's in stable condition.
So the police chief issued a statement on Saturday morning confirming his son was the suspect. They say the following is a statement from Chief John Drake concerning this afternoon's shooting of two Laverne police officers. He says, I am shocked and deeply saddened to learn that my estranged son, with whom I have had very minimal contact with over the years, is the suspect in this afternoon's shooting of the two Laverne police officers. He says, my thoughts and prayers are with the two officers who I understand are now in stable condition at Vanderbilt. This is where the chief talks about the relationship. Despite my efforts and guidance in the early and teenage years, my son, John Drake Jr., now 38, resorted to years of criminal activity and is a convicted felon. He has been part of my life. He has not been part of my life for quite some time, the chief says. He now needs to be found and held accountable for his actions today. He says, I hope that anyone who sees him or has information about him will contact law enforcement immediately. So I'm reading some of the comments because this is really sad. So one comment was, and I stopped reading after a few because I just couldn't take the insensitivity of some of the folks on social media. Has someone asked Chief Drake when exactly did he abandon his son? Number two, another one. Has Chief Drake admitted to being a failed father? Or something to that effect. And I'm reading all this, and I'm thinking these people have no idea what happened within the family dynamic. There are many, many, many times when the kids turn out bad for whatever reason. It can be falling into the wrong crowd. It can be drugs. It can be whatever. But, you know, people, you folks know, right, that kids, adult kids, alienating their parents is a thing. 1/4 of adult children estranged from a parent, according to an article, recent article from The Hill. And basically what happens, and it's becoming more and more common these days, you know, you raise your kids the best that you can, try to instill those values, and you hope that it sticks. And sometimes it does, and quite frankly, sometimes it doesn't. But I can't tell you how many times I've spoken to folks about how their kids disconnected from them. And the more you try and pull them back in, the further away they go. Till you give up and you just hope that it's at some point, you know, they come back. But when I saw the story from Chief Drake, and I think most people didn't know that the chief was going through this, but they talk about the reasons why. They say on one recent study, drawing on thousands of interviews with adult children, found that 26% were estranged from their fathers. A much smaller share, 6%, had cut ties with their mothers. The findings appeared in the April issue of the Journal of Marriage and Family. One professor says, I think it relates to the new desire to have healthy relationships, says one sociology professor at The Ohio State University and lead author of the study. He also says there might be some cultural shifts around people being allowed to choose who is in your family. And that can include not choosing to have the person who raised you be in your family. And they talk about the differences between helicopter parenting and, different types of parenting. And, the bottom line is a couple of different things happen within relationships between parents and children. Number one, you do try to instill those values, and the child just is repulsed by everything you're trying to teach that kid for whatever reason. There's always family dynamics. Is it a first child? Is it a second child? Is it a third child? What's going on in the household? What was the relationship between mom and dad like? It can be any number of things. I mean, you can be a perfectly good parent and still have the kids disconnect with you when they go off to college. So there's so many different things that can happen with this, child-parent dynamic, especially as the kids get older and they get through, junior high and then high school, and then they move out and they don't feel the need to associate with the parents. So oftentimes you hear these stories, and it's true that a lot of kids are abandoned by their parents, but there's a lot more recently where adult children are abandoning their parents for whatever reason. And sometimes the adult children are justified in leaving the kids. In other times, they just have decided that they don't want anything to do with their parents for whatever reason. It could just be, and we see this all the time, especially these days with what's going on in colleges, where you see these kids that go off to colleges and they're completely indoctrinated. And then the parents are like, well, I sent my kid off, perfectly good, Christian conservative, and they've come back this raging liberal who hates everything that, we stand for. And there's always, there's sometimes drugs involved, and again, falling in with the wrong people. Sometimes it's a woman that, or a significant other in the adult child's life that causes friction within the family. There's any number of things. I feel really bad for the police chief. I do. And I realize that I've been critical of the chief over some things, but no parent, no father, no mother should go through what the police chief is going through right now, not only in dealing with his son, but also with the knowledge that his son is in a very dangerous and precarious position right now. So, it's just sort of, praying for the chief today, just to be honest with you, because he's going through an awful lot. 7:15, time to check the roads from the Paul Winkler Investment WTN Traffic Center. Thank you very much. As far as your weather today goes, partly cloudy, a high of 78, 44 now at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Yeah, the family dynamic, it is so incredibly complicated, whether you are Police Chief Drake or, whoever. But I wasn't surprised when I saw that headline. 1/4 of adult children estranged from a parent. That's a lot. They also talk about less of an appreciation. I don't know if this is true, but they say that there's less of an appreciation these days for families, generally speaking. Has that been your experience with some of the young adults out there? Less of an appreciation for the family experience or the family that they grew up with? Maybe. I think maybe a lot of adult children are, the young adults, I think they're less willing to put up with what they don't want to put up with. And maybe that is their parents. But it's interesting. I had this monologue. It was years ago, and it was here on, I think it was on WTN. Maybe it was in Denver. Anyway, I did this whole monologue on reconnecting with your kids. And some of you may have heard me talk about this years ago. And there's a discussion, and it was related to a topic, but I was imploring people who are disconnected and disengaged from their parents for whatever reason to reach out. And again, there's a reason why I was talking about it. I don't remember what it was, but it was a very passionate monologue. It's something that I'm very passionate about. A woman actually heard that, and I'm very proud of this. I'm proud of very little in my career, but I'm very proud of this, where the woman was inspired after that show to pick up the phone and call her father, who she had been estranged from for, had to be, I think, if I remember right, 15, 20 years. She picked up the phone and she called him. And they reconnected. And last I heard, the father had passed away. She sent me a note thanking me for inspiring her to pick up the phone. Because she was just, she was so angry about stuff that happened in the past. And she was hanging on to that anger, and she had to let it go. And she did let it go, and she's forever grateful that she got to spend, the last couple of years of her father's life connected with him and letting a lot of that anger go. By the way, very quickly, the 8 do's and don'ts of trying to reconcile with your kids. You ready? Because again, a lot of people deal with this. Do handwrite a note or leave a brief voicemail. Do approach the situation lightly. Do reach out infrequently but authentically. Now, they say do apologize. Now, I think it depends on if you've actually done something wrong, because sometimes, and this is where it gets a little, a little tough, because do you apologize for something that you haven't necessarily done anything wrong? But anyway, that's what they say. This is sociologists, by the way, and psychologists. Here's what they also say. Don't text or email. Now, my thing on that is, okay, well, what if they don't talk to you, though? Then you have to somehow get the message across. Don't get into a big explanation. I agree. Don't allow silence to take over. Sometimes as parents and the one that's being frozen out, you don't have any choice. And don't plead your case. I would agree on that one, too. So, then there's the super text line is blowing up from people that have gone through exactly what Chief Drake is going through. And people are offering, their own advice as far as how to reconnect with your long-lost, now adult children. It really is heartbreaking for so many, especially as an adult, you're getting older and you realize that time is slipping away and you want to reconnect with that, estranged son or daughter or whoever it is. And it's difficult because as time is slipping away, you realize that your time is limited. And unfortunately, the only thing you can do is the best you can. It's up to them to decide whether or not they want to come back into your life. 7:20 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. Business is booming over at Stoltzco. The question is why? It's because they build great pole barns, and more Tennesseans are figuring that out. Now, if you don't know what a pole barn is, it's anything you want it to be. It can be a classic tool and work barn. It can be a garage. It can be a place to live. A pole barn is practical, efficient, and flexible. And a pole barn from Stoltzco is going to stand the test of time. So, friends, if you are hearing this commercial right now and thinking about a piece of land you have or a section of your property that you don't really know what to do with, think about a pole barn from Stoltzco. If you've got a minute, check them out at their website. It's stoltzco.com, Stoltzco, stoltzco.com. You can also find them on Instagram or Facebook. Tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out. Stoltzco, where quality workmanship and great customer service is affordable. 615-622-5992. 615-622-5992 for Stoltzco.
Manhunt. The son of Nashville's police chief still on the run. 9 Republicans now trying to be the new U.S. House Speaker. Israel under pressure to delay that ground attack on Hamas. These stories and more at 7:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken. 7:27 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. As far as the discussion I was having before the break, Brandy says there's 12 and 13-year-olds doing the same thing, disengaging from their parents. It's not just college-age kids anymore. It is, sadly, 12 and 13-year-olds. They get emboldened, I think, part of what is going on. They get emboldened on social media. They get emboldened with, YouTube videos and TikTok and all that kind of stuff. So Brandy is right. It's not only the young adult children, but it starts at 12 or 13. And then you hope to God that it's just a phase, right? I mean, isn't that what you hope for?
Yeah.
You hope that maybe it's just a phase that they're going through?
Yes.
9985 says, Dan, for once I agree with you. There's a first time for everything. 9985, like preachers' kids, cops' kids go bad as well. I firmly believe that, and I've talked about this before, that if your parents, well, it's like me, Ken and John, it's like me. When I was a kid, I absolutely rebelled against my father, who was a conservative. And that could have gone either way. That could have gone into a long-term estrangement or, for me, luckily, it was not a phase. It was just a learning process. But I could have very easily, gone the other way and completely become estranged from my father. But luckily, he played it smart. He waited until I got older and I started to understand the ways of the world and the ways of the government. And that it was when he used the opportunity, when I realized how much money I was paying in taxes and where it was going. He used that as an opportunity to teach me about the greatness of conservatism, small government, low taxes, and all that other kind of stuff. And it really did become like a bonding moment for us. And so the more you see these kinds of stories and people are sending in their stories, maybe one day we'll open up the phone lines, but...
Oh, we could do weeks on that.
Oh, we very well could. But unfortunately, no time. You know why? Because coming up next, a couple of other stories that we need to get to, including an update on Black Lives Matter. You're going to want to hear this story, and it is all straight ahead on Super Talk 99.7 WTN 729. I want to tell you about my friends at Zero Res. Fall is here, and that means cold and flu season is just around the corner. Get your home Zero Res healthy by cleaning the largest filter in your home, your carpet. With an almost 10-year-old in my house, this is really important. Now, those germs trapped in your carpet can impact your family's health. Protect your family with Zero Res. Now, this is the carpet cleaning company that I trust, and clearly I'm not the only one. They've got 36,000 Google reviews and 700 Facebook reviews as well. So check them out online today and at ZeroResNashville.com. Right now, they've got a great deal going on. 3 rooms of carpets cleaned for only $119, plus you get a free hallway. Again, you get 3 rooms of carpets cleaned for only $119, plus a free hallway, 20% off of air duct cleaning as well. Restrictions may apply. 615-535-9376, 615-535-9376. The website, ZeroResNashville.com. Spell it backwards or forwards. It is the right way to clean.
7:30 on the dot. This Monday morning, I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Right now in Middle Tennessee, the search for John Drake Jr. continues after 2 police officers were shot while investigating a stolen vehicle parked at a store in Laverne on Saturday. Here's Channel 4's Danielle Jackson.
Drake Jr., the estranged son of Metro Nashville Police John Drake, got away, and a statewide blue alert was issued for him. The shelter-in-place warning for people who live near the Dollar General has been lifted. It's because Laverne police tell me they don't believe Drake Jr. is in the area anymore.
Drake Jr. now on the TBI Most Wanted list with a $2,500 reward being offered for information. The 2 officers are recovering, Ashley Bowley Jack at home and Officer Greg Kern at Vanderbilt. Later today in our nation's capital, 9 Republicans vying to be the next House Speaker meet with the GOP conference behind closed doors.
Among the contenders, Byron Donalds of Florida, retired Marine Corps Lieutenant General Jack Bergman of Michigan, and Majority Whip Tom Emmer of Minnesota, who's backed by ousted Speaker Kevin McCarthy. The House is paralyzed without a speaker for 19 days now, unable to pass President Biden's $100 billion foreign aid package for Israel and Ukraine, and with a looming government shutdown next month.
As Mary Bruce reporting, Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage. Ian Panel reports retaliatory airstrikes that Israel says target Hamas leaders continue this morning.
A U.S. official telling ABC News the Biden administration is now asking Israel to delay its ground invasion to allow more humanitarian aid to get in and the remaining 222 hostages out.
Trucks transporting food, water, and medical supplies began the journey to Gaza over the weekend. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Thank you, Ken. So many of us deal with autism, sports injuries like concussion, even Lou Gehrig's disease. Well, there is good news, whether it is you or loved one suffering. There's now a cutting-edge treatment available for you from the Kellum Stem Cell Institute. Dr. Ethan Kellum specializes in the harvesting of and then redeploying of your own stem cells to attack inflammation in your body to help it heal. Now, this is your body providing your cells and your solutions. And Dr. Ethan Kellum can help you today. Now, he's been named as an official doctor for the Tennessee Titans, and he can do something amazing for your health as well. They can also store your cells indefinitely, by the way, so that you can use them when you need them. Dr. Kellum and his staff can also help you with congestive heart failure and lung issues. From asthma to arthritis, they can help you today. And yes, they now accept care credit. The Kellum Stem Cell Institute, 615-850-4415, 615-850-4415. Call today for your free consultation. KELLUM, the Kellum Stem Cell Institute.com. Your body, your cells, your solutions. 737 Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk, 99.7 WTN. Welcome on into Monday, October 23rd. Dan Mandis here along with Johnny B. Ken Weaver as well. Super text line is open, 615-737-9986. Follow me on Twitter at Dan Mandis Show. I love stories like this. And it's not only just because it's a, Black Lives Matter gets what's coming to them kind of a thing, but also because companies are beginning to realize how much BS that whole Black Lives Matter thing was. The headline, Coca-Cola quietly removes Black Lives Matter support on its website. Coca-Cola, they say, appeared to delete a paragraph on its website that supported Black Lives Matter, coming as Black Lives Matter drew controversy for backing Hamas. You know what's so interesting? What's so interesting is that it took the backing of a terrorist organization that murdered over 1,000 Jewish people in Israel. And it took that support from Black Lives Matter of Hamas before Coca-Cola finally realized, maybe this isn't the right company for us to throw our considerable weight behind. But here's the thing. Anybody who has been paying attention to Black Lives Matter knows what this organization is all about. I mean, certainly we could go down the road of corruption. I don't even want to bore you with, all of the monologues that I've done for the past, what's it been now? 3 years, 4, whatever it's been. I mean, Black Lives Matter has been exposed time and time and time again. And it's only when they show the support for Hamas that Coca-Cola finally decides, okay, this is the final straw. Okay, good, Coca-Cola. It's about time. Good Lord. They say earlier this month, Sprite announced a $500,000 contribution to the Black Lives Matter Global Network in a social post committing action in the fight for racial justice. Are companies still contributing to Black Lives Matter? Are you kidding me? Really? Sprite, Coca-Cola? I mean, I wonder if these people actually read. Because, all you need to do, literally, all you need to do is Google, Black Lives Matter and corruption to find out that this is an organization that is incredibly corrupt. And as always, the question is going to be, has any Black life been improved by the political organization of Black Lives Matter? Every time I pose that question, I pose that question nationally. When I was on Red Eye Radio, not one person sent me a note or a text or whatever. Not one person. So I'm kind of shocked that Coca-Cola and I guess it's the same company, right? Sprite, Coca-Cola.
Yes.
$500,000 contribution to Black Lives Matter. Unbelievable. In a social media post committing action in the fight for racial justice. On June 28th, the brand debuted a new TV commercial during the 2020 BET Awards telecast, showcasing Black Americans' resilience, excellence, and optimism. The 60-second commercial, titled Dreams Realized, emphasizes Sprite's commitment to making young Black creators' dreams a reality and to inspire the next generation to do more and dream bigger. Well, you could do that. You can do that without contributing to Black Lives Matter. And I get it with the BET, but with the Black Entertainment Television Awards, I get that. But I wonder, I don't know the answer to this question. I wonder how, by and large, the Black community views Black Lives Matter, the political organization. Because realize that, when you're a conservative talk show host, right, the people that I know who are Black are conservative for the most part. There's one or two malcontents out there that hate me and love to hate me, but whatever. So I don't know. But I do like that companies are now beginning to say, you know what, probably we don't want to support this organization. Ted Cruz actually Ted Cruz tweeted this out. You ready? Caught red-handed. At Coca-Cola deletes its support for Black Lives Matter. One screenshot is of Coca-Cola's website before BLM supported Hamas parachuting into a concert to kill Israeli civilians. The other, he says, is from this morning. I like what Ted Cruz says. Editing your website is not enough. Americans demand an apology. I don't think Americans are going to get an apology, but I'm wondering. I'm genuinely curious. How many more companies still embrace Black Lives Matter, and are they still giving funds to Black Lives Matter? Now, this next story comes as absolutely zero surprise. New York's mayor, at the time of the Black Lives Matter riots, remember after George Floyd, did not deploy enough police officers because he was afraid that it would make him look bad. I want you to think back to the George Floyd riots, the Summer of Love, and you had, cities that were being burned. People were being killed. Cop cars were being torched. I mean, it goes on and on. And in New York City, then Mayor Bill de Blasio thought that it would look bad for him if the Black Lives Matter or the, George Floyd, whatever, protesters clashed with cops. So instead of taking the protesters off of the streets, what did Bill de Blasio do, the Democrat? You know what he did? He took the police off the street and just let all of those rioters run free in the city of New York. I mean, that's the allegation. Don't deploy enough cops. If there is any real trouble between them and the protesters, it would be embarrassing to the mayor. Of course, that's what, they did. And they put the police officers that were deployed in jeopardy. Because you don't have enough cops out there, then what happens? Then the cops become even more of a target. It also puts the citizens in jeopardy. And yes, those folks who are black, whose businesses were burned, homes were destroyed, and cars torched as well. And remember those protests, the Summer of Love protests, those protests cost billions of dollars in damage across the country. Now, all of this is in a new book by former Governor Andrew Cuomo's aide, Melissa DeRosa. Unbelievable. 7:45. Time to check the roads from the Paul Winkler Investment WTN Traffic Center. Thank you very much. 746 on Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7. As far as your weather for today, partly cloudy, a high of 78. Right now, 47 degrees at Super Talk 99.7 WTN. I did find that the whole Black Lives Matter story just so unseemly because of what ultimately that political organization became, which was corrupt. And the leaders, remember the new name for Black Lives Matter, BLM, was By Large Mansions. Remember that whole thing? Yeah. And that is exactly why Coca-Cola now finally they decide that it is the right time to abandon Black Lives Matter. I do wonder, is there people that are watching these various corporations that are still giving to Black Lives Matter? And I wonder if there's people that are within their organization saying, yeah, you know what, this actually may not be the right organization for us to give to. Now, moving on. James Comer, of course, from the House Oversight Committee, he has put out a video on this really intriguing check. It was supposedly a repayment of a loan from James Biden to Joe Biden. $200,000 check simply written, and on the check from James Biden to Joe Biden, it said it was a repayment of a loan. But was it a repayment of a loan, or was it money that was given to the Biden clan as part of an influence peddling scheme? I'm going to play this audio from James Comer where he was telling, this was released over the weekend, talking about this $200,000 check that James Biden wrote to Joe Biden and what it was for. And John, I need some audio if I could.
We're still digging into evidence subpoenaed from bank accounts belonging to Hunter Biden, the son of President Joe Biden, and James and Sarah Biden, the brother and sister-in-law of the president. A document that we're releasing today raises new questions about how President Biden personally benefited from his family's shady influence peddling of his last name and their access to him. Bank records obtained by the House Committee on Oversight have revealed a $200,000 direct payment from James and Sarah Biden to Joe Biden in the form of a personal check. Here's some important context about this check we've obtained in our investigation.
Now, remember, the accusation is that money would flow to the Biden clan and then for influence peddling and the like, and then they would turn around and give it to Joe Biden because, of course, it was his influence that they were peddling. But you couldn't have money going directly to the president. So it would go to all these various Bidens, and then it would flow into the pockets of Joe Biden. Listen to this, because it sounds like he's been caught red-handed.
In 2018, James Biden received $600,000 in loans from AmeriCorps, a financially distressed and failing rural hospital operator. According to bankruptcy court documents, James Biden received these loans, quote, based upon representations that his last name, Biden, could open doors and that he could obtain a large investment from the Middle East based on his political connections, end quote.
Yeah. So this AmeriCorps, apparently, if you follow the bouncing ball, AmeriCorps paid the Biden clan to get loans from this Middle East country for AmeriCorps. And no wonder the company was struggling. They made some really bad business decisions. By the way, they don't say what what Middle East country it was, but that is yet another angle that James Comer and the Republicans are looking into. And you always hear these stories. Yet you'll still have the media say, oh, there's no evidence, there's no evidence. It seems to me like there's a lot of evidence regarding Joe Biden and his corruption. 7:51 on Nashville's Morning News. Winter is on the way, and with it, possible snow, ice, and yes, power outages as well. Big question for you, friends. Are you ready for those power outages? Dan Mandis here for Cove Generators. Now, they are experts in keeping your power on and your family safe. Be prepared this winter with a Generac home standby generator, the best generators around to keep your heat on, even if your power does go out. Now, Cove Generators are your premier Generac home standby generator dealer. Call them today and be prepared for winter. At Cove Generators, all they do is generators, so you know what they're doing, and they do it at a fair price and great customer service. Now, if you've already got a generator, call them to perform maintenance on your Generac automatic standby generator, or frankly, any brand generator that you own. Find them online. It's covegenerators.com, and never lose power again. Call them today at 931-559-3311. 931-559-3311. Terms and conditions may apply. Call for details. Covegenerators.com. Tell them Dan Mandis told you to reach out.
Manhunt for the Nashville police chief's son continues. 9 new Republican U.S. House Speaker candidates will have a meet and greet with the conference behind closed doors today. Israel under pressure to delay its pending ground attack on Hamas. These stories and more coming up at 8 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken. 7:56, Nashville's Morning News. What do you guys think? Are we ever going to have a speaker like in the next week or 2, 3, 4, 5 weeks?
No.
You don't think so, Ken?
I don't see. I have no idea, but for now, it doesn't seem like they're in the mood to choose anybody.
Is it wrong to say that moderates are being buttholes? Because that's what I feel like. I feel like they are so angry at what happened to Kevin McCarthy that it's almost like they don't care what happens. They don't care how bad they look. And it just seems to me like they're just going to let the whole thing burn down. And I understand that they're thinking, but at some point they need a speaker. I mean, Patrick McHenry, you've got Hakeem Jeffries saying, "Oh yeah, we'll be glad to work with, Patrick McHenry." Well, it's not up to the Democrats to decide who our leader is, but the moderates are allowing all of this chaos. But I also understand that we have, other folks that will just pin the blame on the conservatives. So you've got everybody pointing their fingers at each other. And I don't know what any of this at this point has to do with policy, because what the conservatives and some of these folks are promising in concessions is worse than what McCarthy was offering.
Well, who among these 9 new candidates is going to emerge as someone better than Jim Jordan? Or someone better than Kevin McCarthy?
I like Byron Donalds myself. And
Byron Donalds, he is kind of the firebrand, I guess, in this group.
Well,
firebrand.
I don't know if he can be a firebrand.
Yeah?
I don't know if he is a firebrand, but he can be a firebrand. But there's a lot of names there. You got Pete Sessions and some other folks. We'll go over some of the names coming up straight ahead on WTN. I want to tell you very quickly about my friends at Loan Pronto. So many folks, maybe you, buried in credit card debt. Loan Pronto can help you. What if you could be credit card debt free in 10 days and save as much as $1,000 a month? Well, you can with Loan Pronto. And with Loan Pronto, you don't have to do a full home refi. You can simply tap a small portion of the equity in your home and enjoy a super low monthly payment. It is fast, by the way. Loan Pronto's Express Equity Credit Line can get you closed and debt-free in 7 to 10 days. A $50,000 loan is only going to cost you around $400 a month. So call them today at 615-499-5780, 615-499-5780. Ask about their amazing VA loan program as well. LoanPronto.com, 615-499-5780, Equal Housing Lender, NMLS number 166-1781, subject to lender approval.
Eight o'clock on the dot. I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. Full forecast and traffic coming up in 5 minutes. Right now in Tennessee, the son of Nashville's police chief is on the TBI most wanted list. Channel 4's Ryan Breslin says John Drake Jr. allegedly shot 2 Laverne police officers on Saturday.
This all happened Saturday afternoon outside of Dollar General on Stones River Road in Laverne. Police say officers Ashley Bolejak and Gregory Kern were responding to a report of a stolen car after license plate readers picked it up at the store. They say 38-year-old John Drake Jr. shot one officer in the groin and arm and the other officer in the shoulder after a struggle where Drake pulled out a handgun.
There is a $2,500 reward being offered for information leading to an arrest. The 2 officers are recovering, Ashley Bolejak at home and Greg Kern at Vanderbilt. Later today in our nation's capital, House Republicans will hear from the 9 House Speaker candidates behind closed doors.
There's big questions on if anyone could get the 217 votes needed to become the next Speaker of the House. One Republican joked to me that Lord Jesus himself couldn't get that support. And look, even though you have a lot of Republicans that are running, we can't forget this is a pretty big job. We're talking about the second in line to the presidency. Only 2 of those candidates have voted to certify the election.
That is Rachel Scott reporting. Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage. Ian Pannell near the Gaza border, where he says the Israeli government's responding to weekend protests in Tel Aviv, calling for restraint in Gaza over concerns about the safety of hostages taken by Hamas. Also civilians in Gaza.
It may take a month, 2 or 3, but at the end, there'll be no more Hamas. That's the warning from Israel's defense minister amid pressure from America and others to delay its land operation to allow time to get more of those hostages released. An Israeli security source telling me it's good for Israel because it gives them more time to bomb Hamas.
The death toll from the conflict now stands at more than 1,400 in Israel, most from the October 7th terror attack by Hamas that launched this whole thing, and then more than 3,400 in Gaza. Former Major League Baseball pitcher and Nashville Sounds player Danny Serafini is awaiting extradition from Nevada to California this morning. Jacqueline Lee says Serafini, one of 2 people charged in a 2021 shooting, which left his father-in-law and mother-in-law dead.
Police releasing surveillance video showing a hooded man outside the home hours before the shooting. They believe may have been Serafini, connecting him to the murder. And following the arrest, the victim's daughter speaking exclusively to GMA in a statement saying, "This was a heinous, calculated crime. My parents had been incredibly generous to Daniel Serafini and Aaron Spohr throughout their marriage."
Channel 4 says that in 2000, Serafini played for the Nashville Sounds, starting 7 games. Market Numbers report. Market Numbers brought to you by Beacon Capital Management. Online at beaconcm.com. Checking futures ahead of the opening bell. Dow futures down 144, S&P down 15, NASDAQ down 41. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
News with Dan Mandis.
And so, my fellow Americans,
We talk news. Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
807, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Of course, this time Friday, we were talking at great length about the president's address to the nation regarding the terrorist attack on Israel, funding for Ukraine, funding for Israel in the Iron Dome. Senator Bill Hagerty joins us here on WTN. Thank you very much for joining us, Senator. So I got a lot of places I want to go to with this conversation. First of all, just give me the broad brush. What did you think of the president's speech last week?
Well, it was disappointing in what it didn't say, Dan, because what he didn't do is draw a clear line to Iran. That's the source of this problem. That's where the funding is coming from. Iran is the greatest state sponsor of terror. And the Biden administration is so hesitant to even mention Iran because they've been complicit in basically putting Iran back in the game of terrorism. Back in the Trump administration, as you recall, I served as U.S. ambassador to Japan then. My job was to get the Japanese to stop buying Iranian crude oil. We did that around the world. We put maximum pressure on Iran, maximum economic pressure on Iran. And what we did is we brought their reserves down below $8 billion. As soon as Joe Biden came into office, they began to look the other way, allowing Iran to sell their illicit oil. We've seen their revenues go up dramatically. Estimates are as high as $100 billion. And that has funded the 11-day war that came out of Gaza in 2021 after Joe Biden took office, and now this. Joe Biden can't mention that. Joe Biden needs to go after the source. That's Iran. That's who we need to see him focused on right now.
Well, it's frustrating, Senator, because people who know, people like you and people like me and most of the audience, 'cause I've been harping on this for a long time, but given the fact that Joe Biden and Antony Blinken and all these folks spent all this time talking about how bad Iran is and how Hamas wouldn't exist without Iran, but at the same time, leaving out the fact that they have been funding Iran. And so, I don't. Do you think the media is going to come at some point, get to the point outside of Fox and Newsmax and talk radio? Will the mainstream media ever start reporting on what Joe Biden did to facilitate these attacks?
I presume they won't until Joe Biden allows them to do it, until the Biden White House gives them the signal. But right now, the mainstream media, and again, thank you, Dan, for speaking up. Talk radio is great about this. But the mainstream media has not mentioned it, nor do they seem to want to mention it. And this has been going on for more than 2.5 years. I mean, one of the most egregious things that have happened here that the media has not covered is the fact that we had a person in the name of Rob Malley, who was Biden's special envoy to Iran. Malley has had his security clearances stripped. He's been kicked out of the State Department. He's under federal investigation. This was the person who negotiated the original Iran deal. This is the person who's been responsible for U.S. policy toward Iran since Joe Biden came into office. This is the person that I believe has been responsible for blocking the enforcements of sanctions in Iran and enriching the Iranian regime. This is the person who's had, now we've identified, three members of the Iranian Experts Initiative. These are basically spies that have been funded by the Iranian Foreign Ministry on his staff, affiliated with him. He's still got one of them buried in the Department of Defense. She's chief of staff to the Assistant Secretary for Special Operations. She has top secret compartmentalized security clearances. She's able to see the crown jewels of our American, military secrets. And that's one of the people that Rob Malley put into this position. The Biden administration has been completely infiltrated by Iranian sympathizers and people that don't have our best interest at heart, I've got to say, Dan, and the media will not cover it.
Well, I mean, you talk about Robert Malley, and this is a guy who pushed engagement with Hamas and engagement with Hezbollah. And, I mean, it's used to be that we don't negotiate or engage with terrorists unless we're killing them. And this guy, his whole thing has been, well, we have to engage with the terrorists. We have to engage with Hamas and so forth. And, part of what I find fascinating about all of this is who was watching this guy? I mean, who dropped the ball? Was it Antony Blinken? I realize it all goes to the top, which is Joe Biden. But, I mean, who missed the saga of these Iranian sympathizers inside the Biden administration?
I can't believe that they didn't know about it, because this Robert Malley went to high school with Antony Blinken in Paris. Robert Malley's father was the publisher of a communist manifesto magazine over there. He was basically a Marxist journalist. This is Malley's father. This was at the same time that Blinken's father was serving as a diplomat over there. So these boys both went to the American school in Paris together. Blinken has known Robert Malley since they were in high school together. Barack Obama went to law school with Robert Malley. Robert Malley comes to the United States, attends law school with Barack Obama at Harvard Law School. These people have known Robert Malley for a long time. So it's with eyes wide open that they've allowed this to happen. Robert Malley is a known Iranian sympathizer. In fact, they had to kick him off the Obama 2008 campaign because his contacts with Hamas became known. It became toxic in the primary at that point in time. They had to kick Malley off of the campaign team, but they snuck him back in to work on what became known as the Iran deal, the JCPOA. And Malley's been, his fingerprints are all over this thing since the Obama administration, and they brought him back. And if you look at the violence coming out of Gaza, Dan, I mean, in 2014, 2015, we see, massive violence out of Gaza into Israel. That all died down under the maximum pressure campaign with President Trump. And then it comes roaring right back in 2021 when Joe Biden comes into office, when revenues start flowing back to Iran again under Robert Malley. And then we had the 11-day war coming out of Gaza into Israel. I was over there right after it happened. It was devastating. And now we have all of this.
I've got to, as we look at all of this, there's so much that we could talk about. Let's talk about the funding, though, real quick. You have called for the resupplying of the Iron Dome in Israel. Where are you at on Ukraine and the Israeli funding tied together? And that's very, very controversial amongst conservatives. What say you?
It shouldn't be tied together. That funding is these are two different issues. There are certainly connections here, and the connection has to do with Iran again because Iran is supplying weapons to Russia. The solution here would be very obvious, and that's the same solution. That's end Biden's war on domestic energy here in America, bring oil prices down. That would put Russia out of business. We're funding both sides of these wars when you think about it, Dan, because we've jacked up oil prices around the world thanks to the Biden administration's energy policies, and that has resulted in a windfall to both Russia and to Iran, and that's allowed them to fund these wars. But getting back to the effort to tie them together, look, Joe Biden's going to tie everything together to Israel because he knows that conservatives want to support and help Israel. And he's going to throw everything, including the kitchen sink, I'm sure, into his supplemental budget request just to try to force us to vote for it. We'll see what we get, but we're none of us happy about this. And to go back for just one moment on the Iron Dome replenishment, what I've literally asked to do is to reprogram the funding that already goes into Gaza. And now Biden's talking about another $100 million of aid into Gaza. Everybody should know this. Hamas is the elected representative of the Gazans. Hamas will take control of this money. The State Department has acknowledged the high risk that will happen. We shouldn't be putting money into Gaza right now. We should be supporting the Israelis. We should be getting our hostages back. They've got 12 Americans. We should be getting our hostages back. We should be dealing with Iran. We should be dealing with Hamas in that way from a position of strength.
Let me ask, do you have the latest on those hostages? Are we any closer to getting them back? Do we even know where they are?
I think it's been very challenging because what we've learned, Dan, is not only has Hamas been involved in taking hostages, but the Islamic Jihad there in Palestine, the Gazans have more than one terrorist organization that have been involved in this. And so we're not certain even who to negotiate with at this point in time. It's a complete mess. There are over 200 hostages if you count the Israelis. So there's a big job ahead of us to try to navigate all of this. But it's priority number one is to get the hostages back and get Hamas out of business for good.
There's a story out there today about, well, it's a couple of days ago regarding you, where you've introduced legislation to freeze the $6 billion to Iran, probe additional Iranian assets. I'm hearing conflicting stories about that $6.5 billion. Some are saying it's frozen. Others are saying it's not. So can you help clear up that conflict?
So here's what we understand, and what we're trying to do with legislation is to make it clear. What we understand, again, is that Biden was going to pay basically $1.2 billion per hostage in a hostage exchange. The United States did a one-for-one exchange, meaning one Iranian for one American for 5 people. We did a one-to-one exchange. That should have been enough, but the Biden administration decides to throw, more than $1 billion per head on top of that. I think everybody listening right now should know that's not going to be good for Americans. That's putting a price on all of our heads. But Biden does this, and the money now is moved to Doha in Qatar. That's where the transfer is supposed to take place. The attack into Israel happens. Even though the Biden administration says we don't have a smoking gun, we can't prove that Iran was behind this. Even when I was saying that was the case, they're saying it's not. Yet they decided it made sense to freeze this funding. What we understood is that they, quote, paused the funding. They've had a ton of political pressure to do this, even from their own side. And what we're doing is putting in place legislation to not make this just a pause that they can undo later. We're putting pressure on them to make this never happen, that the funds should never go forward to Iran, because we know that Iran's behind us. It's their funding, it's their technology, it's their know-how that's behind everything that's happening from Gaza coming into Israel right now.
Senator Bill Hagerty joining us. Senator, last question here at 8:18 on Nashville's Morning News. The House of Representatives still looking for a Speaker of the House. How much is this impacting? Two-part question. You got any perspective on that, number one? Number two, how is this hamstringing you folks in the Senate?
Well, number one, I think they're going to be, a number of candidates speaking today. That's going to happen behind closed doors, as it should. I hope what will emerge, and probably will take several votes, Dan, just to be practical about all of this. With that many candidates, they need to get well beyond the majority. They need to get all but about 5 of the members to vote in favor of whoever the candidate is. So I think it's going to take a lot more discussion amongst themselves, but I do hope it gets done quickly. This is not helping our nation. It's certainly not helping us in the Senate, because Chuck Schumer is using this as an excuse not to process the appropriations bills that we need to be getting onto in order to avoid yet another threat of government shutdown just before Thanksgiving. It's pretty obvious to me that's where we're headed right now, is another continuing resolution, another set of theatrics before Thanksgiving to suggest that the government might be shut down, et cetera, because we've not been able to get to the business of appropriating. That's what the Congress needs to be doing. The House of Representatives needs to get back in session so we can deal with that. And Chuck Schumer, again, is using this as an excuse in the Senate to keep us from doing what we should be doing.
Senator, thank you very much as always. I know that there's a lot going on, and I always appreciate you taking the time out to inform the folks of Middle Tennessee. Have a great day. 8:19, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 at WTN, and there is a lot going on. And coming up next, some numbers on illegal immigration straight ahead. If you've always wanted to live by the lake, please listen to the next 60 seconds, folks. Dan Mandis here for Lake Living TN on Saturday, October 28th. That is this coming Saturday. You've got a great opportunity to pick up a lakeside property at a fraction of the cost. Now, these prices are incredible, but limited, so you've got to call now to reserve your private tour. For example, some of these deals, 2-acre wooded lots are starting at just $64,000. Lake Village packages are starting at just $349,000. And the last remaining waterfront lots are $50,000 off. Now, these are highly anticipated community lots, and they are just over 20 minutes outside of Knoxville, Tennessee, and features 10 miles of walking trails, over 3 miles of shoreline pickleball courts, and so much more. Check them out online at lakelivingtn.com. That's lakelivingtn.com. And remember, that is Saturday, this coming Saturday, October 28th. Call right now to secure your private tour. Again, tell them Dan told you to reach out. 865-408-9992. 865-408-9992. Invest in something real. Check them out today at lakelivingtn.com.
Hi, I'm Paul Winkler. I've been teaching investing on Nashville airwaves for over 20 years with the Investor Coaching Show. And in that time, I taught a lot about how markets work and how we invest money and academic principles of investing money. But I've also talked an awful lot about how to avoid the mistakes that people often make with their money. Think about it. A lot of people sold out of the market at the worst time when COVID struck, or when TARP happened, the Troubled Asset Relief Program, or gold, they invested in that at the worst time. Bailing out of the market because they were worried about Y2K or 9/11, or jumping into energy stocks, or jumping into cryptocurrency. One of the things that I like to do is educate investors, because I believe that the more educated you are, the more confident you are, and the more confident you are, the more successful you can be as an investor. Now, I not only do that on our radio show, but we do that in our offices around the Nashville region, 10 offices. To learn more about our approach to investing and financial planning, go to paulwinkler.com and set up a free 15-minute phone call. Or you can call 615-851-1950.
Manhunt underway for an accused attempted cop killer here in Middle Tennessee. 9 new House Speaker candidates will go behind closed doors to state their case today. Israel under pressure to delay that ground attack on Hamas. These stories and more at 8:30 on Super Talk 99.7 WTN.
Thank you, Ken. 8:26 on Nashville's Morning News. Just a real quick headline, because I did this earlier, and I realized it's the same story every month. High migrant numbers break multiple records in new blow to Biden border strategy. So says Fox News. I mean, Biden's border strategy is just to let folks in, right? I mean, you know what? I don't know. Now that I realize it, that's a dumb headline from Fox News. High migrant numbers break multiple records in new blow to Biden border strategy. Memo to Fox News, that means that Biden's border strategy is actually working.
Yes, we have new voters.
Yes, that's exactly right. That's exactly right, Johnny. I mean, he wants to let in as many people as possible. So I guess for Biden, congratulations are in order while the rest of us suffer. 8:27, Nashville's Morning News on Super Talk 99.7 WTN. Everything is changing so fast these days. That is a great thing. Now, back in my day, we were lucky if we could get one video to load on our desktop computer. But now, these days, there is the Xfinity 10G network. Now, that means the fastest internet with faster speeds rolling out all the time. And internet that can power a house full of devices all at once with ultra-low lag. So while one person streams a movie from their room, another can play video games in the basement, while still another, YouTube's in the kitchen. It's the next generation 10G network only from Xfinity. The future starts now. And now through November 15th, the new customers can get 75 megabit internet on the next generation Xfinity 10G network for just $20 a month for 12 months with no annual contract. Go to Xfinity.com/10G, call 1-800-XFINITY, or visit a store today. Requires paperless billing and auto pay with stored bank account. Restrictions apply. Equipment taxes and fees extra. After promo, regular rates apply to internet service. Actual speeds vary.
I'm Ken Weaver with your top stories. We've got the full forecast and traffic in 5 minutes. Right now in Middle Tennessee, TBI has placed the son of Nashville's police chief on its top 10 most wanted list. John Drake Jr. is accused of shooting 2 Laverne police officers who were investigating a stolen car which a license plate reader camera hit on. This happening in Laverne on Saturday. Later today in our nation's capital, the House Speaker's race has 9 new contenders.
Republicans will meet behind closed doors. They'll hear from those candidates directly with hopes of selecting a new nominee tomorrow. But right now, it's unclear if anyone will be able to unite this bitterly divided Republican Party.
That is Rachel Scott reporting. Israel-Hamas war continuing coverage. Israel still preparing for a ground campaign to end Hamas in Gaza.
A U.S. official telling ABC News the Biden administration is now asking Israel to delay its ground invasion to allow more humanitarian aid to get in and the remaining 222 hostages out.
That's Ian Panel reporting. And market numbers report brought to you by Beacon Capital Management, online at beaconcm.com. Here's Jim Ryan.
As the yield on 10-year Treasury notes tops 5%, investors are reining in their stock purchases. Before the bell, the Dow, the S&P, and the Nasdaq were headed to a 0.5% loss to start the day. Concerns over higher interest rates sent all 3 major stock indexes into negative territory to end last week. The Dow Jones on Friday closed down 287 points at 33,127. The S&P surrendered 1.25%, the Nasdaq 1.5%. Those interest rates are making houses so much more expensive, with 30-year rates hitting 8%. An analyst from CBRE says the average new home payment is more than 50% higher than the average rent. It's the biggest spread since at least 1996. Food prices, on the other hand, are starting to pull back a little. The Wall Street Journal says promotions at stores are up to levels not seen since before the pandemic, but food costs are still about a third higher than in 2019.
All right, checking stocks. A couple of minutes into the trading day. Just now, we have the Dow is down 143, S&P down 14, Nasdaq starts the day down 46. That's the latest news. Traffic and weather next. I'm Ken Weaver, WTN News.
Thank you, Ken. Get a guaranteed offer from my friends at Mark Spain Real Estate and sell your home hassle-free. Dan Mandis here. Did you know that Mark Spain Real Estate has been helping homeowners sell their homes for nearly 30 years. They've got over 44,000 satisfied clients who have trusted Mark Spain Real Estate to sell their homes when starting their next phase in life. Now, the Wall Street Journal and Real Trends both ranked Mark Spain Real Estate as the #1 real estate team in America for now the 5th year in a row, having sold more homes than any other real estate team. So you want to call them today, Mark Spain Real Estate, 855-299-SOLD. You can trust Mark Spain Real Estate to sell your home quickly and for maximum profit. That is what the guaranteed offer is all about. 855-299-SOLD, 855-299-SOLD for Mark Spain. Find him online at markspain.com to get a guaranteed offer on your home today. That's markspain.com and start packing. The gang. The gang. Was he stoned when he did that?
Brother Jack Womack?
Johnny, play that again. The Gang.
Hang on.
This is why Johnny hates working with me.
Yeah, I do.
The Gang.
The Gang.
I mean, listen, we love Jack Womack.
He's a friendly guy.
He is friendly. He's a unique individual.
Yes, he is.
Radio nerd like I have never seen in my life. Like, Jack, you want to know who did Weekends on WSM AM in January of 1973? He can tell you who it is.
Oh, yeah.
It's not a negative.
No, there's a lot of radio nerds like that. They know every radio station.
Yeah.
I used to work at Wacky over there.
Wacky.
Knew cousin Dougie very well. What a character he was.
Chris Hand, who did Weekends on WSM back in 1973?
Oh, you know the guy.
That guy.
He was the guy with the boots.
That guy.
Yes, that guy. And the beard, no doubt.
Anyway. A good-looking blonde.
He was the one that smoked in the studio.
Yes, that guy. Exactly.
and drank on location.
Yeah, exactly. Nailed it.
That's a joke. Back in the good old days of radio, when you could smoke in the studio, drink whiskey in the studio,
have girls
in the studio, doing stuff. Hey, Ken's here. Ken Weaver. Good morning, Ken.
Good morning, boys. Yes.
Johnny's here. Hey, Johnny.
Hey, Dan.
Chris Hand.
Hello.
Chris.
All right. Who's got what? Chris, go.
A guy in Georgia got a $1.4 million speeding ticket.
He did?
Wow.
Why did he get a $1.4 million? He must have been going fast.
He was going 90 miles per hour in a 55 mile per hour zone, but those license plate readers got him, and then there was a clerical error. So he had to go to court over a $1.4
Did he really
million.
get like a thing that said $1.4 million?
The bill said $1.4 million.
Holy Jesus.
Well, that's taking no tolerance to a whole nother level down there.
Boy, they sure are.
Sure do.
You guys ever get a tollway ticket?
Yeah.
And then not pay it?
No.
And then it just starts accruing? I got one of these Metropolis here in town. So I got a ticket from Metropolis, right? Because I parked, I had to go into a meeting, and then I come back out. Well, I didn't pay it because I'm an idiot.
Yeah.
I actually didn't want my wife to know because she'd get mad at me because I didn't. She told me how to use my phone to pay the Metropolis thing with the code thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so I of course get a damn ticket in the mail. Had I just paid the thing, it would have cost me, like $10, $15, but I didn't pay it. And so by the time I got around to paying it, the damn thing was like $80.
Wow.
80, $85. And then you ever have this happen where your wife finds something that you didn't want her to find?
Yeah.
What's this? Yeah, the
Yes.
octaves go up a little bit.
Right.
The irritation ratio in the voice starts.
Yeah.
Yeah. Does that happen to you yet, Chris? Or are you still too young in your marriage?
Well, no. One time I was driving back from Massachusetts to Michigan, and I got a speeding ticket in Ohio, and my wife was very upset with me. How could you do this? So she took over driving.
Oh, that's a good idea.
She took over driving, and it was 25 minutes later, she got a speeding ticket in Ohio.
Really?
I just sat there so quiet.
Yeah, you no
really?
need
You were
to
able
say
to
a word.
You could not have.
I didn't say anything.
Are you serious?
And then I waited about 10
smart
minutes.
man.
I waited about 10 minutes, just quiet. I said, I love that we do everything together.
I like the placement of 10 and 2 on the wheel there, honey.
Yeah, very.
What did she say to that? Did she at least laugh?
Yeah, she laughed. We laughed about it.
That's a good one.
That is good.
That actually that is very funny.
Ohio, worst state in the world.
Oh my gosh!
If you want to hear Johnny get all angry, just bring up Ohio.
Ohio, it's like their main tourism slogan is "At least we're not Detroit."
Yeah,
that's their claim to fame.
but I've never seen so many troopers in my life. In one
Interesting.
state.
Well, you know what their other state theme is? Welcome to Ohio. Please speed up so that they can give you a ticket, right?
Please speed
Whatever.
up.
Interesting. I didn't know that about Ohio.
Dan said, "Whatever."
Whatever. Come on, man.
And horrible roads, too.
Yes.
Oh, God.
Well,
I did notice that.
The crazy thing in Ohio is they do have horrible roads. I actually know that. And they make so much money on tickets, though. Where's all that money going?
Yeah, where is it going?
Policeman's ball.
I'm sure it's going to schools.
Oh, yeah.
Yes, I'm sure it's going to schools. That's exactly where it's going. Hey, this one's for Chris Hand. Hey, Chris, you ever heard this song? It's Don't You Forget About Me.
Yes.
And well, the reason I have to tell them that is because people listening online they're not allowed to hear it.
I got you.
Oh,
Yeah, so I have to, include everybody, including.
But that was a quick clip. Can't you get around the censor? It's like that was fast.
No, you can't.
How many seconds are we allowed?
Like one.
Oh.
There's no.
So it'd just be don't, and then we would forget about him.
Yeah, exactly right. You know what the crazy thing is for people for people who actually care about the inner workings of radio, this is the hell that is our lives. So we're told, do this online thing, do the cameras, all this kind of stuff. And so, but we're half our arm or tied behind our back because we can't, like, half the stuff we do on the radio we can't do on the stream.
That's right.
Yeah. How many people do we have watching right now?
I don't know.
3?
Several.
What do you mean 3?
Several.
No, we got a lot.
Well, my sister's visiting my parents.
Well, my daughter watched once.
Oh, so 4.
Yeah. Well, no, she didn't watch anymore. She said, "Dad, that's all I could take, man. Hearing you talk about politics, I just can't take it, Dad." Yet still she comes to visit. Anyway, so so why am I playing? So do you know who that is?
I don't know who it is, no. I know the song.
You know what movie it's from?
No, I don't know what movie it's from.
Breakfast Club.
Okay, all right.
And
I know
that is
Breakfast Club.
Simple Minds.
Okay.
So, hey, guy, can I just be honest? I meant to do this in the 5:35 when Chris wasn't here because I knew that he wouldn't know that song. But anyway, so Johnny and Ken, great article that I've tweeted out. tweeted out.
Okay.
Songs that were meant for other bands. So
Okay.
do you know who's
Interesting.
supposed to sing that song?
Ooh.
Do you folks know at home?
I have no idea.
I don't either.
I want you to listen to this one more time. I want to see if people can guess.
All right.
You super texters, see if you can guess. You have a super text up?
I can pull it up right now.
Pull it up. So, you people, can you guess who this sounds like? That sounds like Billy Idol. That was supposed to be a Billy Idol song.
I can see that.
Yeah, that would have been a good tune, actually.
9675. Well, it is a good tune, John. It's one of my favorite tunes.
It's not a bad tune.
Brian says Toto. 9675 says Police. There you go. 4429 got it right.
Yeah.
And he says Billy Idol. So there you go.
I may not have known who sang that song. I may not have known what movie it was from. But I have had that song in my mind, believe it or not, because I want to make a remix with Joe Biden saying "Don't" in the hook.
See, that's good. Actually, that's very funny. And of course, everybody will when Joe Biden says "Don't." Everybody will. Hey, the great thing about this, let me see if this will work. Audio, Johnny, if I could. So who was supposed to sing that song? You guys know? Who was the original artist of that? Of course, do you know? Wait, hold on. Chris, do you know who that is?
Yeah, it's from that shampoo commercial, right?
Nope. Well, maybe there was a shampoo commercial. I'm not sure. That is by an American musical act known as Blondie.
Okay.
Deborah Harry, baby.
Deborah Harry, and that was from the 1970s or 80s, I think. But anyway, you know who was supposed to do that song? Johnny, Ken?
I can't think.
I know because I can't think of anybody else but Debbie Harry singing that
Stevie
song.
Nicks.
Yeah, that wouldn't have worked.
That would not have worked in any way, shape, or form.
See, I thought of that too, but I thought, no, that couldn't be.
That's exactly right, Stevie Nicks. So,
Call me.
So she turned it down.
do you remember, Johnny, when you and I were talking about how Stevie Nicks sounded like a goat?
Yeah, she does.
Oh, my God. You know who Stevie Nicks? Please tell me you know who Stevie
Yes, I know who Stevie Nicks is.
Who is she?
She's the goat from South Park, that one episode.
That's exactly who it is, man. That's exactly who it is.
Nailed it.
He knew.
Oh, my Lord, have mercy. All right. Yeah, anybody got anything else?
Well, the country's falling apart.
Boy, it sure is. It sure is.
Anybody got any tape?
Tape? Oh, it's going to take a lot more. We need like Gorilla Glue to patch this thing back together.
We're going to build back better, baby. That's what we're doing.
Is that what we're going to do?
That's what it looks like. We're building back better currently.
Very good. Very good. What's coming up after the news at whatever?
We're going to talk about Joe Biden. We're going to talk about Joe Biden's relaxing weekend at the beach.
He was at the beach?
He was at the beach.
Not only was he at the beach, but have you guys heard of this artist, 50 Cent? He was calling him out on Twitter.
50 Cent?
And Instagram.
Yeah?
50 Cent was
50
calling
Cent?
him out.
Okay, so first, so you know, I know you're trolling me, you jackass. It's 50 Cent.
It's Fitty.
50 Cent.
Fitty. So anyway, Fitty was on the gram over the weekend, and he said, "What are you doing, Joe? You need to wake the bleep up. We need you."
Did he really?
And he posted a picture of Joe Biden asleep on the beach. Somebody wake this man the bleep up.
That's what I said on Friday. Like, really? He's going to Rehoboth Beach?
To be fair, it's like leave the kid out of the antique store. You know what I mean? Like, if he was at the office, he could be breaking things.
Well, let's be honest. He's not really doing much of anything anyway. I mean, is he really? No, not really.
He had to wax that Corvette.
Riding around on planes. Riding around on the big plane.
By the way, I finally saw the Antony Blinken, the half face of Antony Blinken on that video from Joe Biden where he was giving the speech and the... Okay, so I'm glad I'm not the only one that saw two testicles on Joe Biden's chin. No. Other people said it too. Well, from the CPAP.
Save that. You got to save that.
That's a whole bunch of people said it too over the weekend, so I knew that it wasn't just me.
Hunter was the one posting weird videos online.
Like father, like son.
That's just what it looked like to me. Whatever. All right, I think we're done. Can I just tell you how much I absolutely love when I say something and everybody just flees? It's just like, nope.
Grenade! Everybody get out of the way.
Oh, did you not see the tie on the door?
She's gonna blow. There's like a 5 or 6 second pause that everybody needs so that they don't get sucked into the bit. You know what I mean? It's like if we have that 5 or 6 second pause, we won't end up in the air check going to corporate.
Nobody wants to be in the corporate air check.
No.
No, that's happened to be a time or two, man. Let me tell you.
Corporate air check.
All right, I think we're done. Johnny, thank you for filling in for the next couple of days. I am out going to LA, folks. It's that time. So pray for my family. Mom's not doing well, but fingers crossed. Hopefully she'll be fine, but very serious time, so we'll see how it goes. It's not much else to say about it. I'm going straight to the airport from here, so...
Godspeed to you, brother.
Yeah, it sucks, man. Good luck with everything.
But I will be listening. I'll be up at like 7 o'clock in the morning, like LA time, and Johnny, I'll be listening to you. Just so you know.
All right.
I'm going to find a Starbucks close by and drown my sorrows in a latte.
Well, on the bright side, you'll have In-N-Out.
You know what? There is In-N-Out. And I actually, to be honest, I hadn't even thought about going to In-N-Out as I'm going to say goodbye to my mother, Chris.
Well, you should post a picture of a cheeseburger or something. Take your mind off of it.
Oh, listen, let me tell you something.
Instead of going to Starbucks.
Yeah.
You know what? I have an agenda. All right. I do have some friends I want to see, some people to see, places to go.
Good.
In-N-Out is going to be one of them. I don't even know how long I'm going to be gone. Probably just a couple of days. But anyway, so we'll see you down the road at some point. It is 8:51 on WTN. Dan Mandis here for the Wellness Institute of Nashville. If you are sick of losing quality of life because of chronic back, neck, and knee pain, call my friends at the Wellness Institute of Nashville. They can help you today and do it at a reasonable price. And right now, they're offering half off spinal decompression therapy for your chronic pain. Now, not only are they offering half off, but your first appointment is just $23, and that does include your first exam, consultation, x-rays, and that first treatment as well. So call them today, the Wellness Institute of Nashville, 615-246-5009, 615-246-5009, and take advantage of half off spinal decompression therapy for your chronic back and neck and knee pain. That first appointment is just $23, 615-246-5009, painisbad.com.